Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miguel Sanchez. I'm calling to order the special committee on Ways and Means. The time is 5:37, Thursday, May 28th. Madam Clerk, can we please call roll call, please?
Chair Sanchez.
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor is absent. Councilor Davidson.
Present.
Councilwoman Graves.
Present.
Councilwoman Peterson.
Present.
We have 4 present and 1 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I want to recognize our policy staff, our comms team, our interns, our clerk's office, Etsy from our city solicitor's office. Thank you for joining us. At this time, anyone that plans on presenting before the committee, can you please stand up and get sworn in, please?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your name and your title for the oath.
James Scott, zoning board applicant. Chris Matisse, executive director of finance and supervisor.
Angela Bianchi, Chief Accounting Officer for the fund. Paula Brown, Deputy Superintendent.
What have you moved this, superintendent of fund schools?
Zachary Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Operations for the schools.
Thank you. So we're gonna take item 6 out of order. It is an appointment to the zoning board. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to move item 6 out of order.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Davis. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Mr. Scott,
Chairman Sanchez, thank you, it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
how are you today?
Doing well yourself?
Pretty good. I think everyone's pretty familiar with who you are and the service that you have and continue to provide to the city of Providence. In a quick paragraph, could you just summarize on why you want to be appointed? This is a new appointment, not a reappointment, correct?
So I served as second alternate since 2019.
Okay.
I believe I took Chairwoman Anthony's place, former Councilman Anthony's place when she stepped into the council, or somewhere in between us and overlay. Serving as second alternate though, I voted probably in most meetings because you do have absences and recusals, things like that. So I have a pretty robust voting record. I'm proud of some of the stands I've taken. I'm proud that sometimes I've had to occasionally vote against the recommendations of the planning department if something comes up in the hearing that wasn't presented to them. So it's in a way we can be a custodian of the city and protect our neighborhoods. This term would be replacing Chairman Greenfield. I would not be the chair. Ryan Holt is the chair, but I would be a full term where I vote in every meeting. And I feel at this point I don't need to find the front door. I've been doing this for close to 7 years, and I have an interest in context in neighborhoods, having previously served as director of Parks and Recreation for Warwick, working at PPSD with my amazing friends back here, and especially Superintendent Martinez, where I got to ride shotgun and back in some of the facilities work, some great transformation work. I've been involved in the Affordable Housing Board and overall enthusiastic about all things Providence. So I'm glad to be here with all of you tonight.
Awesome, thank you. In your experience in the zoning board, what have been some of your biggest challenges that you've seen the board have to work with?
I think it's interesting, like we really just call balls and strikes based on the state sets the ordinance and you write the local ordinance. So I don't think there's been a lot of challenge. I think since Speaker Shikachi and the council subsequently revised the ordinance and they signed it, I feel it's a lot more streamlined. Like it's the meetings go a little bit quicker and it's a little more user friendly in the relief criteria. The ADU laws took a lot of stuff out of zoning there by right now, and they should be. There's smaller lots in the city, so it's hard to do a ton of ADUs, but I think it's a lot more streamlined now. And, some of that's the council's good work on amending the ordinance.
Appreciate that. Committee members, is there any questions for Mr. Scott? Comments? Councilor Peterson?
Just a quick one. Thank you for your service. You've done a lot for the city for a long time. I know we've known each other for quite some time now, and I appreciate the support that you've given not only in my neighborhood, but also the one abutting, and then even yours. I know that you live just a couple of wards over, so.
Ward 6 resident, for the record.
I guess this is definitely a comment as a thank you, but I actually do have a quick question, now that I'm thinking of it. Zoning is very different from the work that you do during the day. So tell me why you like zoning.
I think it started as an offshoot when I was on the Smithfield Community Development Corporation Board, so which Althea Graves is familiar with, Councilman Graves, and I'd done that, I did that work. When I got on the board, the organization was struggling a little bit, had passed its peak, but we were able to keep it going and did create some new affordable units. And I think that was important. That started when I got on that board as assistant principal Kazarian. And I saw some of my students struggle with housing. That really affects learning when you don't have adequate housing. We discussed that many times. And that led to 2019, Mayor Gorza at the time put my name forward to replace Chairwoman Anthony. And that when I've been on there, and it was a learning curve because it is very different from what I do. But it's, after a few months, you really get the hang of it, and I feel I get a good perspective because I'm not, that type of work lends yourself to being a lawyer. So we have, I think, 3 lawyers on the board, which is good. They're all smart lawyers. And then being an educator, I look at differently and come from a different angle when I approach that work. But I really enjoy serving the city council. Thank you for asking that question.
Absolutely. Thank you for, again, your
Any other questions, comments, Councilwoman Graves?
Just a comment. Thank you for all you did in Smithfield area. I think wherever you go, you're an asset.
Thank you. I feel the same about you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you for your service. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Awesome, thank you. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve item 6.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councilor Peterson, second by Councilwoman Graves. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Any discussion? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councilwoman.
All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion to waive the reading of items 1 through 5.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Davidson, second by Councilwoman Graves. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Any discussion? The ayes have it. At this time, I will entertain a motion to enter Exhibit 34 into the record. 34. Motion made by Councilor Peterson, second by
Second.
Councilor Davidson. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Any discussion? Ayes have it. Who's gonna present before us today? School department? Yeah, you can bring up whoever's gonna participate in the conversation. Yeah, we can move stuff around to adjust.
No, they already have. Everybody has this.
Before you guys start, I do want to recognize that our amazing, wonderful finance team is here for any questions, support, any comments. Please feel free at any time to raise your hand if you want to jump into the discussion. If you guys want to join the table at some point or now, it's up to you completely. I really appreciate you guys being here. Before we begin, Chair, I just want to say, obviously we're at a very important time for our school district. I mean, it's always important, but right now with this transition, there's a lot of questions, concerns out there in the community, but as chair of this committee, I want to make it very clear that we're here to support the district, the students, the families, the teachers, in any way possible. Obviously, we all signed up to be in these positions. Our constituents elected us. There's going to be tough decisions at times to be made, but that's a part of the job, and I think we all are aware of that. So yeah, and anything that we can do to support, obviously Counselor Davidson, a few other counselors, some staff have been involved in some of these conversations more than others. But I just want to make that very clear before we begin this conversation that we're here to support, to help, to stay out of the way if needed. As you know, anything that we can do to support this transition, we're here and you have our full support.
Appreciate it, Chair.
Of course.
So I want to say thank you, Chair, and members of the committee. Today, what you're going to be hearing is that Providence Public Schools is facing a challenging 2027 fiscal year due to several factors, which include the declining enrollment. We're looking at high fixed and variable costs such as transportation, benefits, and special education tuition. The decline of enrollment is leading to a loss in state aid. Roughly 2/3 of local funds come from the state based on per pupil allocations. Nevertheless, we at PPSD continue to be fiscally responsible and making reductions in line with the declining enrollment revenues. Since the start of the intervention, we have had over 500 less full-time employees. Despite these challenges, PPSD continues to make investments in student-focused areas such as teaching and learning, multilingual learners, and early childhood education programs. However, despite these challenges, PPSD is still on the rise, and we're showing progress in the work that we're doing. We have increased in ELA YCAS scores, math YCAS scores, SAT math scores, SAT reading as well. So we're making gains. We've dropped chronic absenteeism. We're leading the state in many areas, so we're proud of the work that has been done, but also thinking about what the future is going to bring. We're also looking ahead. We will need to make sure and make some tough decisions, strategic decisions that we're going to be focused on for students. So we want to make sure all the decisions that we do focus on student outcomes. So that's what's going to probably most likely be hearing today. And I'm going to now turn it over to my colleagues, Zach Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Operation, and the team, so we can go through the budget itself. Thank you.
Deputy, before you begin, can the other two folks just share their names and titles? I know you guys shared it when you guys weren't in, but just so we're all aware here at the table.
Dr. Paula Dillon, Deputy Superintendent of Academics.
Chris, TC Executive Director of Finance.
Okay, thank you.
And Zach Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Operations.
Zach, before you start, I would also like to mention that our goals as we move forward, they have to align with the school board goals that were written. So we want to make sure that everyone's aware that any of the decisions that we make that's going to be impacting students, we have to make sure that we have a high quality curriculum. Also, we want to make sure that we have support staff or interventionists, and also making sure that we're looking at career and technical educational programs as we move forward, because those are the areas that we're going to be focused on through the goals that were given to us by the school board.
I also want to acknowledge our Chief Talent Officer, who introduced herself earlier, Atul. She's just a few weeks in, but she feels like she's been here.
Welcome, thank you.
We're very lucky to have
Thank
her. And Josh.
Nice to meet you.
How we would want to engage in discussion, but because small groups we're always happy to answer questions throughout. But we have a presentation that will help guide our discussion. I think we shared both our budget book as well as our ordinances, and so at any point, if people want to go however deep into those areas, we are prepared to do so. But the presentation hopefully guides us kind of and highlights a lot of the key points, and then we can jump into what people would like.
Thank you, Deputy. Before you start, do you mind if we ask questions while you're presenting in the moment?
Totally fine.
Awesome, thank you.
So slide 2 is a little bit of the organization of our presentation. One is to give a budget overview, and I know some folks are very well versed in the school department's budget, some may be new to it, and so we wanted to just get some broad understanding of that. We then talk a little bit about how we approach planning for FY27, as well as some context on what we've done over the past few years with our budget and what that's led in terms of student outcomes. Then really the heart of the budget details are in section 3, where we'll provide an overview of each of our ordinances, and I suspect there'll be a lot of questions both on the overall big picture as well as on any of the individual department or spending plans. And then we do the the council had questions and inquiries on students experiencing homelessness, and so we're prepared to talk with you about that, both from a financial lens as well as how we support those students.
We appreciate that, thank you.
So moving to slide 3, in this first section, again, an overview is to give you a sense of big buckets of where our money comes from and how we spend it. So slide 3 gives you the 3 very high-level chunks of the PSC budget. The local budget, and that's what you'll see in our appropriation ordinance that consists of city and state funding as well as some smaller funding sources. That is the vast majority of our budget and is used for basic education needs and ongoing expenditures. You'll see the middle, about $37 million is our non-local budget that consists of our federal dollars. You might know these funds as Title I, Title II, Title III, IDEA. Incredibly important part of our budget, often is used to do supplemental work and professional development and things like that. In general, in the grand scheme of things, it's a smaller dollar amount, but still critically important. Lastly, we have grants and donations, a smaller portion of our budget. We note that facilities bonds, we work very closely with the city of Providence. The funding for those facilities projects do not go through the school department, but we're glad to partner with the city closely on those. In terms of diving into our local revenue, 3 key components. The first is state aid. What you'll see here is what it was in FY26, which is pretty consistent year to year. State aid, the vast majority of that is driven by enrollment, along with students experiencing poverty, multilingual learner students, and then there are some categorical funds related to special education. And so we'll do a deeper dive into that for FY27 later in the presentation, and you can see some of the historical funding in the budget book. City aid, obviously been a point of discussion over the past few years. We have reached a settlement agreement between the district and the city last year. So what you see here is the amount that was agreed to in that settlement. The last bucket of funding is other, the biggest of which is Medicaid. So we receive Medicaid revenue for students for whom we can bill services, and there are also some other smaller revenue sources that fall under it. So that's the revenue side. Again, local budget, the biggest part of our funding for the district, and then in that, the vast majority, the 2/3 that come from state aid, much of the rest comes from city aid.
Quick question, Deputy Director, sorry about Deputy Superintendent, sorry. How come the dollar amounts in the parentheses in the key funding sources doesn't match up the table graph?
That was I failed to update the graph, so it's roughly the same, that I think is the prior years, that's FY25, so I apologize. It's not. But the numbers you see in parentheses on the key funding sources are the accurate. We transition to slide 5. This gives you again, and we have more in the appendix. This looks a few years prior. We had an outside contractor help us just categorize our funding as a kind of an objective party. So this is not FY, this is FY24, but it roughly holds true in terms of the allocation. If you think of the amount we spend, I guess 3 big buckets. One that we would kind of think about as our non-district budget. So there are a portion of funds that we are obligated to pay out to other districts, to charter schools, that while it is revenue in, it is an automatic expenditure out for which the district does not have control over. And so that's that top part where you see charter and private school payments. But that in FY24 was about $52 million, and we can talk about what that number is in current years. Then below you'll see the remaining, so what you think of the in-district budget, and those are distinguished between school-based costs and central-based costs. School-based costs are the vast majority of our expenditures in the school district, 87% here. Obviously, most of our spending happens at our schools, whether that's in staff, supplies, and services, and then a much smaller portion, 13%, is in central-based costs. So big picture, just wanted to give you a sense of revenue, and then how our budget is generally organized. And then as we get into the coming year, we'll have a lot more detail that we're trying to go through. So the next few slides, I think we just want to provide a bit of context and talk through what informs our planning for this coming year. And so some of this is to highlight work that's been happening over the past few years and what we've seen in terms of outcomes. And so I'll do my best to kick us off, but Dr. Berlin can speak much more to the student outcomes that we see. So what you'll see are a few key areas of investments that the district has made over the past few years. Not the exhaustive list, but those that we felt were very important. The first have been in the areas of teaching and learning, and so we've invested in high-quality curricular materials and aligned data systems and professional development. We had some one-time funding through ESSER, and we were the only district in the state of Rhode Island to extend the school day for students, which we think was able to help us recover at a faster pace, which we'll talk about next. So some of the outcomes we've seen in this past year, we were the only district in the state to see improved outcomes on MyCast, ELA, and math, and SAT, ELA, and math. While other districts might have improved in one of those areas or two of those areas, we were the district that improved them all. We had the highest reduction in chronic absenteeism, and we had the highest graduation rate that we've seen in the past 10 years. A key area that came in at the start of the intervention that we needed to be supported and receive greater investment was support for multilingual learners. We're a district that was roughly 20% multilingual learners. Prior to the intervention, we were close to 40% at this time. It's a great asset for the district as we welcome students who come from out of state and out of country. But we didn't believe in, and it led to a Department of Justice settlement agreement that the district was not adequately supporting their students. And so we made a number of key investments to support students and families and multilingual learners. Kind of building on high quality curricula is certainly part of it, but we've also invested heavily in our teachers, more than nearly doubling the number of teachers who possess an ESL certification. We've also expanded our translation and interpretation services for families because we saw that as a major barrier. What we've seen is some growth in both outcomes for students who are multilingual learners, but also we are one of the few districts who actually have been able to exit the Department of Justice settlement agreement. So Boston is a district that has been in there for nearly 2 decades and has not made the progress that we have. But we were released several years ago for the work that the team has done. On early childhood, there's both investments in students and also addressing some areas of underinvestment for many years. Similarly, the district was under a settlement agreement for failure to adequately screen pre-K students, and that was due to lack of staff. So we've added pre-K evaluation teams because we are obligated to screen all students in the city of Providence, whether they become a Providence public school student or not. We've also added pre-K classrooms, both to support advising and special education needs, but also through the Rhode Island pre-K expansion. And this has allowed us to double the number of 4-year-olds enrolled in high quality pre-K programs. And this past year, we were able to open the school year without any pre-K vacancies, which has been a challenge as we've expanded those programs.
Councilor Graves, this question?
Actually, I have a couple. If there's a decline, or you're expecting a decline, but you're telling me you got almost double the enrollment, so doesn't that count?
Are you talking about the pre-K enrollment?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a good thing to point out. We've seen an overall decline in district enrollment. So prior to the intervention, we had roughly 23,000 students. We are now closer to 19,000. We have seen growth in the number of pre-K students served, but that doesn't cancel out the overall decline in enrollment. So the decline is overall, the growth is we've seen in pre-K.
Okay, and you said you had the highest graduation rate in the last 10 years. Also, if you're saying that you have less students, are you doing it by the fact that there's less kids in the school, but you're graduating?
Yeah, the graduation
How are
rate
you doing it?
is a percentage. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, how are you calculating it?
Yeah, and it's not actually the graduation rate is something prescribed by federal or at
Yeah.
least state law.
Yeah.
So it's not our
It's
own,
both.
it's
We have accountability measures from the federal government, so they check on our graduation rates and tell us how we're doing each year.
Okay, because to me, it's kind of, you're saying that we don't have them, but we got a higher rate of this, we got more of these, you know. Seem like, maybe,
The overall percentage of students graduating is higher, even though we have fewer students.
okay, okay, that's,
Are you all set, Counselor Graves?
go ahead.
Counselor Peterson has a,
Yeah, just a
Question,
quick
follow-up.
question, similar to what Councilor Graves has said, or similar topic. Are you noticing, or can you see a trend of students that are enrolling in pre-K? Are they dropping off at some point in the elementary school system, in the middle school system, in high school? And is there like are you seeing that? And if so, how does that factor into what can we do to make sure that we're retaining them? I guess that's the next question.
Yeah, so areas that we've often seen attrition in students has been fifth grade, sixth grade, and ninth grade is a little complicated because we lose students, but we also gain a number of students who come back for some of our for hospital and PCTA. And so obviously a number of factors that go into that. I think at fifth and sixth grade, it's for those parents in the room, like it's a time when students are typically elementary schools are ending, students enter a lottery to enter middle school, and people either know which middle school they want, and if for whatever reason that's full, then they might choose to exit. It's also a grade level that other options outside of PPSD open up for families, whether that's a private school, a charter school, what have you. I think that it's early on in this, but what we've seen is as we've added pre-K through 8s, we've had options where families can actually stay in those schools for another year. And so we've only had 2 schools add a 6th grade. We'll have 2 more next year. But I think between those 2 schools, we only saw each school only saw 5 students leave, which is pretty small from what we would normally see. So it's very early, very small sample size, and so we want to see more. But that was part of the idea with pre-K through 8. It's a way to not only improve student outcomes, but hopefully parents see if that's what they choose,
Yeah.
they can stay in the school for a long time.
So if I may just jump in, just to make sure, when I was the principal of Lebanon dual language, that was one of the biggest questions I used to receive from my parents was, they were always asking, where do I go now? What middle school? Because they didn't have the dual language program. Now we have expanded the dual language program all the way to high school. Yeah, and that's another reason why it's really important. Research shows that when we have pre-K 8 schools, it does 2 things. One, it helps our families because now they have younger siblings and older siblings that only have to go to one place to pick up that person. The second thing that we're looking at, now they can build a deeper relationship within the building because now they're no longer there just for 5 or 6 years. They're there for at least a decade, 10 years. So that's basic, building that relationship and building that transparency, building the trust within that community.
A third strategy that we have that's working well and we're continuing to grow it is to grow our career and technical education programs. Our students are expressing extreme desire to be in those programs. We have wait lists. We have more students applying to those programs than we actually have seats. So next year alone, we're going from 29 to 32. We'll be the first medical imaging CTE program in the state. We'll be the second program for dental in the state. And so as the students are expressing to us what they would like to go into and industry is telling us where those needs are, we're adding those programs as we're able to afford to and as we have space. So that strategy in terms of, you asked what are things that the city can help us with or city council can help us with, it's really thinking about the funding sources and the grants and the partnerships that allow us to do those things.
I have to add to that because I'm so proud of our educators and mostly of our students for the work that they do. 100% of our students who go to CTE programs, they complete the entire CTE program. 100% of those students graduate, and we just had 97 students who were part of the electric boat signing. 97 of our students got hired right out of high school, starting at $25, $30.
And students that have at least some CTE program are at the 91% to 92% graduation rate, which is much higher than our students who don't take a single CTE class. So we know these things are working and we need to continue to provide them for our students the best that we can.
Thank you.
Just to confirm, our graduation rate is what, 70 something?
79.
79%.
And 91 for students who are in CTE and 100 for students who finish, do the whole entire CTE program.
Which is usually,
It's like three to four course sequence that results in a certification at the end.
so it's not like they're in the CTE program all 4 years for all of their classes? or-
No,
yeah.
they still take the same math, science, ELA, world language that all the other students take, and they take these in addition to it. So these students are very well-rounded. They can go into college, they can go into career, they have a lot of options when they graduate.
And can we make that clear, because I sometimes hear, well, if they do this and they can go to college. No, it's not this or that, it's this and this
Thank you.
together.
Counselor Davidson?
Yeah, just have a comment. I was out and about in Providence last weekend and saw that some family had, my proud graduate is going onto an electric boat, and it made me so happy. I'm really glad that we're creating those opportunities for students, because in my view, it opens up opportunities for
It
higher
really
education, not closes them down.
And we have
That-
partnerships with Roger Williams, we have partnerships with New England Tech, with URI, with Rhode Island College. So many of the students in our CTE programs are not only getting a career certificate, they're actually getting college credits while in high school. So if they choose to go onto that college pathway, they already are starting at an advantage because they don't need to take the same number of courses to graduate that their peers entering those colleges do who haven't had those opportunities. Dual enrollment, yes.
I think we can continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Just introduce slide 8 and in fact, the only one through, I think what's most exciting is it's a very, it's a recent report, it's one that was done by kind of best in class researchers, not done for Providence, but Providence was included, and it's a very promising result, so I thought it was interesting.
The reason why we wanted to include this is one of the things you might hear often is Providence says it's improving, but the overall proficiency rates continue to be lower than the state average. We are improving, we are at pre-pandemic levels, and we need to continue to improve on overall proficiency. But I think it's really important to celebrate the fact that our rates of growth are outpacing national averages, and that demonstrates that we are moving toward that higher proficiency rate. So the Harvard-Stanford Educational Scorecard Report looks at students from how are students doing comparatively across the state, but then also comparatively across the nation, and they look at it by demographic. So they'll look at things like students who are in the low income category, students who are from different demographic groups, Black, Hispanic, and then students overall. And so on the right-hand side, what you see is that compared to similar districts, on the first column is in math and the second column is in ELA. So compared to similar districts nationally, our students are growing at the 70th percentile compared to the 52nd percentile in math and 69th percentile in ELA compared to the 35th percentile. When we look at our Hispanic students, which we have been expanding programming for and making sure that all of our teachers are certified and adding programs bilingual blue language, we see that we're in the 79th percentile in math and the 83rd percentile in ELA.
That's really important, because think about what we did as a community, as a school district, when we had the opportunity during the pandemic and we had the extra funds that we invested on over 500 teachers to make sure that they received their certification in blue language bilingualism. And now, good teaching is good teaching, right? It doesn't matter where you teach, what you're teaching, who you're teaching, when it's good teaching. And we were able to do that. So we grew our teachers who were certified in those areas by 40% increase. So at least 40% of our teachers are certified in those areas. I'm sorry.
That's, no, we're really proud with the progress that we're making, but we do understand we need to do more. Growth percentile among our Black students also above national averages, 66 percentile in math and 63rd in ELA. And then low-income students, 65 percentile in math and 61st percentile in ELA. This ties in a little bit to later on when we start to talk about the homelessness factor. So I think it's really important to highlight these growth percentiles and to say Providence is moving in a strong direction for the students, and we're going to continue to do the work. We've invested in all of our teachers in the reading initiative that is across the country in terms of making sure all of the teachers, similar to ESL training, are trained in reading. We're hiring reading interventionists to support students. We're making sure that we have interventionists in all of our schools. And then we're also providing acceleration programs. We've increased our advanced academics into every single school. Before it was only select schools that had those programs. We have the highest number of increases in AP scores. And so there are a lot of promising data points that we want to celebrate and express that in order to continue this work, the funding that goes behind it and the support that goes behind it and the partnerships that goes behind it are really critical.
And that's a good segue to slide 9, where we, as the superintendent mentioned in the opening comments, despite, and we'll share, despite some financial challenges, we do want to continue investing in the areas that lead to strong student outcomes. And so part of the work with the school board over the last year was to identify goals, and what you'll see are those 5-year, grade 3 literacy, grade 4 math, grade 8 literacy, graduates that hold an industry credential, and then civic and global competence to enhance personal growth and adaptability. Fortunately, these were goals that were very much aligned with those outlined with your action plans and those that Rob has been supporting the district all along. So a lot of it was just continuing on what we had. But what these lead to are beyond all the high quality curriculum we already have across these areas are some additional investments, and we can talk through those in the detail section, as well as some staff to support student learning. So these we'd like to put at the front of the presentation, because even though we'll talk through some of the trade-offs, decisions we've had to make, having clear goals are helpful, and hopefully we can keep going.
And of course, we're working on literacy and math across all of our grades. The reason these are particularly called out is we're targeting some additional investment of talent, time, and funds into these, because grade 3 is the gateway. If we can get students proficient in reading by grade 3, that's the gateway to post-secondary success, whether it's college or career. And grade 4 math is the gateway to Algebra 1 readiness, which is the gateway to all of the higher order mathematics programs that students can enter into for high wage, high career jobs. And so that's why those particular grades are called out.
Thank you. Just 1 second. Is it what's going on with you?
We have issue with the system, so that's the best way that we can show the meeting tonight.
Reset.
The cameras,
A
but
reset
everybody's
won't-
listening to us.
A reset won't help it.
I don't think so. We can try.
Would we have to pause the meeting, or what do we need to do for? How is it is it like a few minutes to reboot, or?
We can turn off the camera and the system, but they have to start again. Yeah,
What do
we
you
have
guys-
to reset and
You
start
got-
the meeting again.
Yeah, do you guys think it's okay that the camera might be a little off? Okay?
But everybody can listen to us.
Right.
The public can listen to us. It's the only issue is they don't see the entire room.
Who's speaking? Like, that's kind of
Yes,
a
the
problem.
camera is moving when you speak loud.
I don't think so.
Want to play around with it and just see if
Yeah.
we can.
Sorry, I just think it's
Yeah,
important
I
that
get
we
it.
make sure
I
to try to.
The camera goes towards movement more, so like if you're eating, for example, it'll focus on you. It's not, I think it's not.
Uh,
And, no, I don't want to touch it.
What'd you say?
Yes.
We had a few people we lost.
I know, it's
It's the way it is right now, so I don't want to.
Sorry, everybody.
So to that point, maybe whoever's speaking can.
I would also maybe just move these away from the mic, because that might be blocking the sound too.
These?
Yeah.
You want to give a trust?
No, because this is the camera.
Yeah.
This is the camera, and show one here and the other one on that side. But we can continue with the meeting, but
Sorry, Steve, it was the
Well, the audio is fine, it's the
the
video
audio is
that's-
fine, and everybody can listen to us.
I think we gotta do what we can with what we got.
Yeah.
Continue this conversation. Want to recognize that our pro temp, Juan Pichardo has joined us.
So
Thank you,
nice.
sir. Sorry about that.
So, a few more slides before we get into the 27 budget details that I think are important. And again, maybe repetitive for those who've been with us before, but we do like to talk through the budget allocation process for our schools. We're now in year three of student-based budgeting. Prior to this, the way allocations were given were typically school staffing was rolled over from one year to the next, or determined by central office. And schools were given 2 to 3% of their budget in discretionary funds to purchase supplies and materials. We now have an allocation methodology that looks at funding for all students, but also provides funding differentials for students with IEPs, multilingual learners, students in CTE programs, and other things that we know drive need, and so it's tie dollars to need. It allows us to have very clear rules on how funds are allocated. It allows us to differentiate based on needs. We're happy at any point to talk to you more in depth about what that looks like. But it's been very helpful for us, I think, as having a clear and transparent way for our schools to know how funds are allocated. It provides consistency year to year, and it also allows us to know where, put dollars against the programs that we're funding. Slide 11, another important piece of context is just looking at enrollment, and so some of the questions earlier. What you'll see here is a 3-year enrollment snapshot, October 1 of each year. That's typically the time when enrollment is pulled. And you'll notice that we've seen roughly a 750 student decline over the last 3 years, with much of it happening at the middle and high school levels. And then we've seen particular declines in newcomer students at the high school level, going from 220 on October 1, 2024 to 134 on October 1, 2025. And we'll talk about this more as we get into the 27 budget, because I think what we've seen in this year is some particularly unique enrollment patterns that we haven't seen in years past. We typically are a school district that gains students over the course of the year, and to the tune of 400 to 500 students when it comes to the state aid numbers. This year we were relatively flat, and based on that happening typically in 6th grade and 9th grade is where we often have students that are coming from out of state and out of country. Much of this impact beyond demographics seems to be based on federal, changes in federal immigration enforcement, which is unfortunate, but has it has a real impact on our student population and ultimately our finances.
Deputy Superintendent, can you get us enrollment numbers, say for the past 10 years?
Absolutely.
Just a quick follow-up, Counselor Peterson.
Would you say, Deputy Superintendent, that it's because students are not enrolling, but they're here, or they're just not here any longer?
I mean, what we noted is we had fewer, the growth in students over the course of this year in particular was quite low. And what we saw, that changes either you grow in it because you gain a lot of students or you lose fewer. We lost about the number of students who left was about the same. The number of students who joined us went far down. So it's hard to prove that with certainty, but what it feels like is far less people immigrating from, and in particular where we saw the biggest change was typically our ESL 1 students, so students who are typically English learners and had limited instruction in English. The growth in that student population is it actually declined this year in a way that we since I've been here haven't seen.
Just as a follow-up, my concern is that we have students that are just not coming to school while they're still here, and there's not any way that we can seek resources for them or find support for them when needed. This is sometimes the only place students can eat. And we've had this conversation before, but I worry that we have some of that happening, and that's not great either. Thank you.
Lastly, before we get into the 27 budget, I think it's worth, obviously, we're here with you tonight, but to give you a sense of the overall kind of engagement and when we think of our budget, obviously, we start with limited information, we get more over the course of the year. But so early on, we started with our school board in the fall, we get initial state aid projections. Come January is when we start both getting better information from the governor's budget and we refine our expense projections. We've met with our school board. We meet with our school board finance every month, but since February, we've been providing updates on our FY27 plan. So a lot of what you'll see here, we tried to consolidate it, but we always welcome people to join our school board finance meetings because that's often the primary place where we're sharing updates. We had an update in March, and so when you see revenue numbers, that's based on what was released from RIDE in March. We still know that there is time and that any finalization of the state budget will impact PTSD as well. So we're happy to talk to you what we anticipate there. But what you'll see here reflects March numbers, which are pretty much set in terms of enrollment. The only thing that could change is some change at the state level.
Thank you. And I also just want to point out that the House posted their budget for tomorrow. So anyone listening, anyone here, you have weekend plans now if you did it. Thanks.
All right, now to dive into the details, and the next few slides summarize some of our ordinances, and we fully are anticipating or prepared and happy to talk about the details of each of those ordinances as much as we can. So slide 14, we have three main ordinances, which we'll go through, as well as some, we'll start first by talking through revenue. So we have our appropriation ordinance that describes funding by categories. The funding categories, the way it's organized, you're excited about the UPSC budget?
You did such a good job.
But it is based on the Uniform Chart of Accounts, which is required by RIDE on how you organize it. We don't have as much flexibility. We have to organize our funding by that, but it's actually very helpful because it allows you to compare municipality and municipality spending. This encompasses all of our local funds, so state and city aid. And so when we talk about the appropriation ordinance, that's the funding that we're talking about. Compensation lists all the positions in the district and their pay bands. It assumes all agreed upon salary increases for the coming year. Like the city, we have several bargaining units, the biggest of which is the Providence Teachers Union. We are under contract with all three of our unions for this year, so there is no open contract or no open question about what the salary increases are. The last one is a classification ordinance that gives you a list of all of our positions by department and compares it in school and compares them from one year to the next. So you can look at your department of interest or a school to see changes from one year to the next. And both the compensation and classification ordinance includes all funding sources. So you get to see whether it's Title I funded or split funded. All positions are in ordinances too.
Deputy Superintendent, just before I forget, when does the current teacher's contract expire?
It expires at the August of 2027.
Thank you.
2027?
Okay, slide 15, I'll spend a bit of time on this. So this is our revenue, local revenue for next year. And there's a lot of stuff here, so I'll do my best to walk us through how it's organized. The first column you'll see is the current year's final budget. The second column you'll see is the proposed budget for next year, and the third column will be the change from one year to the next. The top portion where you see that above that first subtotal is all considered state aid, and it includes a few sources of which I'll talk through now. You'll see the first two lines are it's an up-to-date and funding formula, so you can see the change from year to year. But if you combine those first two lines together, you'll see roughly a $1 million increase in the funding formula from one year to the next. While that is obviously gaining is better than losing, it assumes the funding formula assumes a 4% increase for all on a per pupil basis, and so the reason it's only a $1 million increase is because of enrollment declines. The funding for the enrollment change from last year's funding, this year's funding to next year's funding is 329 students. Some of that has to do with projected charter expansion. The rest has to do with general enrollment declines that we've seen. So the funding formula, the good news is that per pupil has gone up by 4%. The bad news is that we've seen less students which negatively impact that number. We've also seen a smaller number of students who qualify for SNAP, TANF, and other social services which impact our student success factors. So that combined with the enrollment decline leads to a relatively small increase in funding formula. We also see a small increase in the enrollment loss transition funds, those next two lines. So taken together, it's about a $500,000 increase. Those were funding sources enacted in the past few years where districts that lose enrollment only lose a portion of the funding that goes with that loss enrollment. In the first year of loss enrollment, the district receives 40%, and the second year it's 25%. So
does that have a cliff, or is that
I don't think there's any expiration date, but I also don't think I think it would change easier than the funding formula. I think it may not exist in the statute, so there's no end date, but there's also, I don't think the barriers to removing it are lower than others.
has that allocation been in place the whole time while the state takeover? That just got added, right, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think it was maybe 3 years ago, and it was, and I know we're obviously talking about Providence. The enrollment decline is something that is happening statewide, so I think this is something that was put in place as all districts started to see it well. Then the component is obviously very small. The next thing you'll see is a decline in high-cost special ed categorical funding. I'll do my best to explain that source of funding, but it is a pot of money that is allocated by the state for students whose cost to educate is 3 times the core average. Anyone above that qualifies for this funding source. And it's not fully funded, so depending on how much people spend, it's allocated out to districts. We still spend a significant amount on special education. We have fewer students who have kind of hit that extraordinary cost level. Some of that has to do with we brought some students back from out-of-district placements or other things that allowed us to serve students in the district effectively, but at not such an exorbitant cost. And I also think because this is based on what other districts are doing too, I think other districts have seen some pretty high growth in this, which has led for the coming year for us to see actually a decline in this category. So taken all together with the state aid change, the enrollment loss transition fund, and special ed categorical, we are seeing a $1.3 million decline in state aid, which is a challenge, as you mentioned. That's state aid is typically 2/3 of our budget, 2/3 of our revenue, and so a $1.3 million decline has a substantial impact. If you look next,
sorry, we have a question over here. Councilor Turner.
Yeah, on the line of the reserves, you're using 3.2 million from the reserve. What is the balance of the reserve that you currently have?
current balance is $4.2 million.
4.2 million? And what is the reserve usually used for?
Yeah, so the way the first, as we went into the state intervention, there was an agreement that the city would not be responsible for any deficit that the district ran, and so it was also at the same time when the district shut down during COVID, so we had a one-time surplus that allowed us to put into reserves. We really haven't had to use it, with the exception of the years in which we entered into settlement agreements with the city. And so when we had our planned revenue for the year, when that settlement agreement was less than that revenue source, we used reserves. So the reserves started a bit higher, and then as we've had several successive settlement agreements, we've used the reserves to cover any gap from planned revenue.
Are there any additional dollars that, now that the schools are being returned July 1st for fiscal year 2027, 26, 27?
Do you mean like
For this one?
additional funding sources?
Yeah.
Or? No, I mean, there's no necessarily additional funding sources, I believe. I mean, the funding sources, state, local, federal aid will still be.
Are you all set?
One more. And just on the funding formula from the state, I know you explained it in essence that for this proposed budget is less than the previous year.
That's right.
So therefore, the state is not providing, well, what is the shortchange on that compared? So, what is the deficit in the sense that between the years?
Yeah, so the past few years, the vast majority of the increases the district have come in state aid, but for this coming year, we are seeing a $1.3 million decline from current year to next year in state aid.
Okay. And
Yeah,
the last one?
of course.
Are there any other reserve accounts or any additional money that the school department has available?
No, reserve account is the
rainy day fund?
Yeah,
That's what it is? Okay, thank you.
Counselor Graves?
You said that, a lot of this money that was from SNAP. Is it because of the decline in student enrollment? Or does it has to do with the cutback that's going on with the federal government right now? Or both?
Yeah, probably both. So there are certainly fewer students in absolute terms, but the percentage has gone down. So it was 78 last year, and it is 75 this year. We should double check that. Both the absolute number and the percentage of students who qualified has gone down. I think there's a couple of reasons we've heard that people believe that's happening. It's either people who are worried or scared to seek services. So the way this works is that students who are in a family that gets TANF, DHS, the State Department of Health and Human Services matches those students with our rosters, and that tells them how many they should use for the formula. There have been fewer students who have been matching, so it's either that there are fewer students eligible for those students or fewer families that are seeking those services or there are either less people that are eligible or less people that are seeking.
Yeah, that would make sense. Back in July, November, Federal Administration passed some harsh deductions to SNAP eligibility. So
Yeah, and I think some of it might be still people are afraid of the ICE, so they're not going to apply for this.
Counselor Davidson?
Yeah, we might be getting into the weeds too quickly, you can tell me if so, but I'm looking at the,
Never get into the weeds too quickly.
so here we go. I'm looking at the high cost, special ed category funding decline. I also noticed when you get into the budget detail, sorry, I didn't have to look at my phone for my notes, that tuition to other school districts has raised by about 1.5 million. Is there any correlation there?
So it's worth talking through.
It's on page 30 something.
Yeah, so there's a number of UCOA lines that reference tuition, so let me walk through what each of them are, because they're all slightly different. Tuition to other school districts, assume it includes, Mr. PC will correct me, the Davies and the Met, so
Okay.
state schools and CTE.
So it's not at all just special ed?
No,
Sorry.
so the one that is just called tuition, that is special education.
That's the special ed referral.
There's the other, while we're here, the other ones, you'll see tuition to educational agencies, that's for students who go to CCRI and New England, and then tuition to charter schools is tuition to
Okay, thank you for helping me understand that.
Just before we move on, Superintendent, just to clarify, confirm, so the 4.2 million in reserve, that's the balance right now.
Correct.
So say this budget goes through, it's gonna be 1 million in the reserve by the time July 1st starts, is the projection? All right, thank you.
Have another one.
Councilor Paterno?
Seeing that there is that shortfall, is there any implication or any planning, with the changes of the funding formula and the proposed legislation? Can the state turn around and provide additional dollars to the PPSD?
Yeah, so I think that's a topic we'll hear more about tomorrow at the General Assembly. We don't have any special insight into it, but we understand that there was an original proposal in the governor's budget that assumed an increase of the success factor from 40% to 43%. And the success factor is essentially a multiplier for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch or who are economically disadvantaged. And so the 40% represents of the per pupil, an additional 40% is added on for every student in poverty. This legislation would change that from 40 to 43%. It was taken out when the March data updates came through, but because of, I think, better news at the state level in terms of revenue, it sounds like it's back on the table. So that would certainly, I think, be a benefit to the district. It wouldn't know until it's passed exactly, but it would potentially be $4 to $4.5 million increase in revenue to the district by our estimates. So that, I think, obviously, decisions would have to be made, but the starting point would, we would probably not use reserves next year, so we wouldn't be starting from, starting from that hole. So, but that, we wanted to plan as if that weren't happening, just kind of
Sure.
be prudent, but that is a potential that could happen.
And just 1 second, just to confirm and state for the record, hopefully someone from finance can jump in. State aid increases, what's the city's responsibility?
Well, Ms. Mayor, I didn't say, or maybe just tell you, but.
You can just tell us, Crystal.
You trust me at this point,
Yeah.
you're approving months, right?
I trust you with my life.
Thank you, Chair. The city is committed to matching whatever the state increases right now. It's a little over 2% after the March data update, but it will likely change or will definitely change with this sector. So we will need to figure out how to close that gap between now and when we adopt our budget.
Awesome, thank you, Crystal.
Thank you. I mean, good segue into the assumed aid is based on the March numbers, and we've been in consultation with the city, and I think are in alignment. And we'll watch to see if there's any other changes in state aid. That number could change by the end of the General Assembly. We have seen growth in Medicaid revenue over the past few years. Really 2 years ago is when it started, and then it sustained last year to the point where we feel comfortable increasing it as part of our funding for next year. Part of that has to do with more students qualifying for services. Some of that is connected to the growth in students with IEPs and special needs. There's also been broadening of who can qualify for billing. So social workers, of which we've added quite a few since the start of the intervention, historically could not bill, but there are now more providers that can bill. So we think that this is, since we've seen now 2 years of sustained increases in Medicaid revenue, are including that in our planning for next year. And then the last component is reserves, which we just talked about. And again, the assumption would be if additional aid were to come in, we would go first to start reducing our use of reserves.
This is obviously interesting time for all of us to be in. While we are planning for vote control July 1st, it's still under state control up until then. I guess what's Providence Public School District position on a reserve account? Is that something the school district has had in the past? Like, what is obviously going into back to vote control? What is your guys' suggestion, plan, with having a reserve account. Obviously, if there is a possibility to have a reserve account, I think we all support that. But yeah, I guess like, is anything gonna change in your guys' opinion when it's officially local control?
Yeah, in short, and this is, I think I can speak for the district, we don't anticipate that changing, that we would continue that, a reserve account. I think part of that it's less about our opinion, but I think there is some state law that refers to districts once funds are appropriated through a school department, that they aren't able to be, pulled back. I am sure that is not everyone's opinion, and others may disagree, but I think both because we've seen it as helpful in our planning, but also because I think state law indicates that's, once funds are appropriated to school departments, they aren't, can't be.
Right. Has there ever, in any of your guys' time with the school district, outside of before the state intervention, was there a reserve account at any point?
I've only been here for 15 years, so I can only speak to, I don't believe that, I don't think there was one.
Most districts do have one, because if something were to happen, high school roof fails, anything significant happens, there has to be a funding source to be able to do that so that students can continue their education. And what the state districts have found, the ones that haven't had that, have run into some pretty sticky situations when they have, especially a facilities failure and they have no reserves, or they have no reserves to keep on situations that are of extreme nature, such as a shortfall in a budget at the budget year.
Any other questions before we continue?
All right. Okay, let's talk through the next slide, which gives you a summary of our appropriation limits, and as I know that all of you have it, a lot more detail in there, so what I can do is give you a summary, and then pause to see where people want to go more in depth. So just to give kind of a big picture, school department, the people business, the vast majority of what we spend is on people, so both salaries and benefits. And so let's kind of talk through both of those in order. Salaries, we are projecting a $1.5 million decline in salaries from year to year. And that is a combination of several kind of forces that are causing that to reduce. So let me just pull up my notes to make sure I have it right. So salaries, we, based on our cost of living increases, we would project, I believe it's a roughly $7 million increase. When you factor in, we have a 3.75% increase to our teachers, 2.75% to our other unions. Part of the reason that is the highest of the 3 years for the teachers, 3.75, because they received no increase or 1% halfway through the year. So this contract had more money towards the back end of the contract. So taken all together, based on cost of living increases for salaries, that would yield a $7 million increase. We then, and we'll talk about this in the next slide, made significant reductions to FTEs. That gets to another, $7.5 million reduction in FTEs. Yeah, taken with you get an increase of the cost of living adjustments with position reductions, another $7.5 million decrease, and then we have a stipend, some other salary items like stipends to our special education teachers that we are reducing, leads us to the 1.5. So it's both. Normally this would increase based on cost of living, but we made significant reductions to FTEs. And we'll talk through both on the next slide where those the types of jobs that were eliminated as well as where they were. Benefits was a combination of some increases and some decreases, and so after we saw a decrease in academical for this year, the actuaries that we work with are projecting an increase in academical for next year of roughly 3.3 million to our local budget, and a decrease in city retirement of 1.1 million. So netted together, those are the major changes in that area, are a $2.2 million increase in benefits and special items.
Just a quick question, Deputy Superintendent, Councilor Peterson.
Thank you. Decrease in city retirement, that means less people are retiring, or just their benefits are not as.
You can correct me, I think we get from the city retirement, we get like that actuarial report about, hey, this is how much you're projected to pay for next year, so it's, I would assume a combination of fewer people and the rates, how those play out, but please, yes, thank you.
So every year we send a census to the actuaries based on enrollment as of June 30th of that fiscal year. They take that census data and project what the contribution will be for the upcoming 2 fiscal years based on enrollment at that time. So what we see is as positions are reduced in the budget, which I think is what we're seeing on the school district side, that people paying into the city's pension system, there are less FTEs that are doing that.
Okay.
The actuarial contribution required for the district is gone down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
The next category is the other beyond salaries and benefits, the largest bucket, and so I will go through each of these in some detail. Transportation services, we're at the end of our transportation contract. We went out to bid early, which allowed us to have 2 bidders. The bids that came back were quite high and unfortunately, consistent with what we're hearing from other districts who are out to bid at the current time. So we saw a 15% increase in the rates for buses. We anticipate fewer buses, so that will lessen the impact there, but the rate of the contract went up pretty significantly. While we typically in any first year of these service contracts, we would have seen increases, it was quite substantial. Unfortunately, it's something we've heard consistent with other colleagues in other districts.
Deputy Superintendent, I don't want to add too much more to your plate, but just so we can have a better understanding of the whole situation, contract. So something we've worked with our finance department is every department comes before us, presents their budget. And what's helped us committee members is for those departments to provide dollar amounts and specific contracts above a certain threshold. I'm not sure what that threshold looks like for PPSD, but maybe we can work together going forward, just so we have a full picture when we're talking about contracts. We know what we're looking at. So I think Counselor, I don't want to volunteer Counselor Davidson, but some portion of us, I think, will follow up and have that. Not as important as other things, but it helps us, especially going into this very important time period, how the full picture is looking. Thank you.
I'm happy to be considered all of
Yeah, sorry.
And we're happy to do that, and just to put a little context around transportation, so there's a couple of big components of that transportation line. The biggest of which is our daily runs, so our yellow bus service, that is about $14 million. The next is statewide, so what we pay for students attending special ed or programs out of district, that's around $6 million. The third component is RIPTA, so we have RIPTA passes for students used to be who lived over 2 miles, now it's over 1 mile. That's around $3 million, and then the last and smallest is athletics, which is around $1 million. So a lot of, again, the big driver here is our first student contract for yellow bus service, but also to a lesser extent statewide. Special ed services, that is our special education tuitions. We are expecting to see fewer students out of district. So I will give them. We are down 24 students for next year, which is a positive development. But like many things, we have seen the rates for that tuition go up quite substantially. So historical tuition rates for out-of-district tuition have gone up 3 to 5%, and many of our providers are now up 8 to 10%. And again, a lot of that has to do with staffing challenges that they're facing, and therefore, as they've caught up and their costs have increased, it unfortunately gets passed on to school departments. I will talk about public schools of choice and out-of-district CTE programs together because they're intertwined, and there's a change this year which is makes these numbers move in interesting ways. So public schools of choice are the amounts that the district has to pay out in tuition to charter schools. So it's typically around $4,500 that is set by RIDE and is considered the city or LA portion for any student that enrolls. Providence student who enrolls in a charter school receives that pass through from the district.
I'm sorry, Deputy, can you say that again one more time?
Yeah,
So is this outside of the regular tuition payment?
So funding, the way charter schools are funded, they receive their state aid directly from the state. So nothing, if a student enrolls in Achievement First, the state aid flows directly from the state to the charter school. There's almost think of like the city portion. So the amount we get money from the state and the city. The amount we have to pay a portion of our budget over to the charter school in the amount that is equivalent to what the city contributes to the school department. So that's really like and it's a rate set by the state. So it looks like an expenditure, but it's essentially a pass through from the city through us to the charter schools.
Question, Councilor Pichardo?
Yeah. What is the per student number that gets passed through?
$4,473 per student for each child.
I'm sorry.
Each child student, the LEA portion is $4,473.
And then the additional 4,500?
No,
For
that's
transportation?
he round, exact round.
Right. But what about, that's that portion, the
Correct.
4,500?
Yes.
But what about per student, for the tuition that follows that?
That's the state aid, that's the
State
state
aid.
aid portion that follows that student. So it all depends if that student's a multilingual learner or experiencing poverty. So it could range from $15,000 to $18,000 a student.
But we have those numbers though, right?
It's all on the state website. We follow how much state aid, how much the per pupil dollar amount is that each child school is receiving. We don't track their state aid. It's RIDE's responsibility.
Right. But you basically receive that money.
No, we don't receive the state aid. The state aid goes directly to the child school.
Charter schools,
Based on their enrollment.
based on the enrollment. Okay.
But we have to pay the portion of the LEA portion of those Providence residents that are attending that charter school,
Right.
which is $4,500 per student.
And the transportation is managed by PPSD.
No, the charter schools are all mandated to provide their own transportation for their own students. That was set back in Title 16 statute when funding form was fully implemented, maybe in 2016, 2015.
We do provide transportation for private workers,
which is in state law.
You still provide to the private
parochial.
and parochial.
And that was 6 million, right?
That's statewide transportation, so that a little different. Statewide transportation is Providence students, so those are our students who attend
parochial schools,
special education.
Yep.
CTE programs. Some of them are displaced as well, so that's all in that bucket of statewide transportation.
Follow-up, Councilor Pearson?
Just remind me again, what is the per pupil cost for the city of Providence?
4,000, what?
The total for the, it's not 4,000 that it costs us as a city, it's like 19 or something.
Oh, total, yeah. So total tuition to charter schools?
Charter schools?
No,
No.
sorry. The total per pupil cost in general for each PPSD student. It's like 21,000, 22,000.
What's the,
That's page. Page 23 of the budget book. The latest-
23?
Yeah, 23 is, we don't calculate this,
Okay,
right calculations based on our expenditures.
okay.
So in fiscal 24, Providence spent $29,839 per student, all funding sources.
Yeah,
So this
Yeah.
includes,
this was during Esther, so that would be that's.
yes.
so.
So it's less now.
Just a follow-up on that. You mentioned state aid to charter goes, it's about 15, 18, depending on what it might be per
Per
student.
student.
And we give approximately 4,500 or 4,700. It doesn't equal what our per pupil.
No,
cost
because
would
this
be.
is per pupil spending is all funding sources, include federal dollars as well.
Okay, thank you.
What happens to federal dollars if a student, we just don't get, no one gets it if a student goes to a charter school or private school?
They are, Dr. Zimmerman, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are applied to their own application process to apply for Title I dollars 2 and 3. However, there are caveats in Title II, Title I, 2, and 4 that we have to provide funding to private parochial schools that participate in our programming as well. So it's a little complicated.
But charter schools receive their own federal dollars.
Their
Private
own
parochials, we
allocation.
have an obligation to provide some of our federal charges.
So in other words, we have our Title I money, which we'll be talking about later, we're talking about homeless. There's a percentage carve out that for all of the private schools in Providence, we have to do a consultation with them and provide a certain dollar amount and also potentially services for the students in those schools that are Providence residents.
Thank you. I think right now is a good time to bring up just a concern or question, comment, if you guys, I talk about it a lot, 'cause I'm really concerned, and a lot of elected officials, in my opinion, don't talk about this enough, because it's a very political challenge, you could say. It pulls a lot of emotions, but I'm just primarily talking about this as a fiscal challenge, you could say, in regards to our tuition to charter schools. The numbers I have before me, please correct me if anything I'm saying is wrong or stop me. In the school year 2020 to 2021, the payment to charter schools was 21 million, give or take, dollars. This current fiscal year, 2025, 2026, it is, or 25, 27, it is 29 million? Is that the current, is that actuals for this fiscal year?
Fiscal, so the current budget, this fiscal year is 35.5 million.
35.5 million is this current fiscal year, FY26.
So, was I wrong in my first number, and what was the
Which, I'm sorry.
2020, 2021 fiscal year contribution to charter schools?
I only go back 5 years.
What's the last year you have on there, guys?
This, 23.
What,
Fiscal 23, our expenditures to charter schools was 28.3 million.
28?
28.3.
So since 3 fiscal years ago to current, about $8 million increase? My question and concern is, what's the plan fiscally if we see the same growth in 3 fiscal years? That's another 8 million, less enrollment.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things. One is we would continue to make reductions to staff and district footprint. So as we've seen enrollment declines, as we mentioned over the past 4 or 5 years, we've seen significant declines in the number of staff because we need fewer staff to support. On the revenue side, the enrollment loss transition fund helps in that it, as the district loses students, you don't lose the full amount, you lose 40% or 20%. So between the reductions and the revenue, enrollment loss transition fund, those help, but it's certainly a challenge. I mean, it's not gonna fly.
I guess what I want to hear, or not what I want to hear, what the point that I'm trying to make clear, you could say, is obviously, a student goes to a charter school, then, that charter school has new fiscal responsibilities. So I don't think anyone is, I'm certainly not saying that no money should go to that student. But what I've heard or what I've been told is we're still responsible fiscally for the payments. What I'm trying to get is to that our expenses don't go down the same dollar amount that the deduction in revenue received. So there is some calculation that needs to happen. I think at the state level, some type of funding formula, rather sooner than later, because I am extremely concerned if we continue this path, just from a fiscally position. Obviously there's political and other intuitions on why we believe on what we believe, but fiscally, charter school expansion as under the current funding formula is putting impossible problems to solve on just a financial matter. And I've said this to you group, and I know, obviously we all have our constraints to try to work in, but this is what I tell my colleagues and neighbors when this topic comes up, because this is gonna bankrupt us if we don't do anything. And then I don't use those words lightly, but I just don't see another way around this issue until we start advocating and trying to change something dramatically. And I think this involves some of the charter school organizations at the table. I think their voice is important in this, obviously. State House, leaders have been talking about some type of moratorium to, at least in my opinion, stabilize the finances for a short period of time. Because this, in my opinion, and I don't think it's my opinion, I think it's facts, looking at a spreadsheet here, is a really dangerous path we're going in. If you guys have anything to add, if you want to share anything, you're more than welcome to.
We just have a follow-up.
Counselor Peterson has a follow-up
Thank you.
question, comments.
Questions, maybe? Yeah, there is a cap on the number of charter school seats that are from the city of Providence, correct?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's a cap as much as they approve, when they're approved, there's a limit that they can't go above. But
Right.
I don't think the number that are active and used are less than the number that are approved.
I was just, so then my next question was gonna be, are we close to that projected number or whatever it might be?
I don't think so. I mean, we can look at the total aggregate number. I think there are some schools that had expected charter schools that had expected to open earlier, and so they're a little behind in their rollout, but there are a number of schools that are adding, so Excel is adding ninth grade next year, Student First is adding fifth and sixth grade, so those will continue to roll out until they get their max.
Just as a follow-up comment, I share your concern, Chair, on this particular thing because we don't have a plan forward for how, if our costs keep going up and our enrollments keep going down, and then we also have to pay into a portion for them, how do we balance, right? Is there any sort of idea or anything that you guys are trying to come up with? Because I'm sure this is not a conversation that you're only having here. Is there anything on the horizon in terms of finding pockets of money down underneath the rainbow or something? I don't know.
I think one of the things that we talked about earlier is one of the important strategies that we have to continue to work toward. Our pre-K-8 schools are showing early promise of students wanting to stay with us when we have pre-K-8. Our expansion of CTE programs and high-quality programs that our students are wanting to be in is a really important strategy as well. So I think there are conversations that have to happen on the fiscal end and funding formula end for sure. But I think one of the strategies that we have the most immediate impact on now, we have control over, is are we providing those services and programs that a lot of the students want and need and want to stay with us for. And I think that the PK8 strategy is one of those, and as is CTE, and we need to continue to build those.
The two things that I would add to that are, I think there have been some positive steps already. So the addition of the enrollment loss transition fund has been helpful. And to your point, like for every dollar we lose, you can't cut the same amount of expenditures to recover. And so that enrollment loss transition fund at least softens the blow a little bit, but maybe not fully. I also think the proposed funding formula change that has been put out there will help in a number of ways. But one of which is, if I understand it correctly, it acknowledges that there's a lot of fixed costs, whatever you might want to call them, that districts have to cover. So we have to screen all 3 and 4-year-olds in the city, regardless of how many students we have in the district, regardless of whether any of those students come. There's no revenue source for that, but we have to have 4 teams of 5 people screening all year to do that. So I think the funding formula acknowledges that there's some districts that don't have to do as much of that, or as a charter school, they don't have to screen pre-K students. And so changes to the funding formula could be helpful in really aligning funding with the cost district have, because it's not all on a per pupil basis.
Counselor Davidson?
So related to that, and maybe I have clarification of Councilwoman Peterson's question. Charter caps. I know we're talking about, and then I believe there's currently a statewide charter cap. But is there a charter cap for Providence as a district as opposed to just statewide?
So there's a number of approved seats, and those seats are differentiated by the number. I think whenever a charter applications is approved, it indicates how many of those seats, how many are in Providence. So I think that cap goes down to the city level.
To each individual LEA?
That's right.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
My last question on charter schools, is there any administrator, like teacher to teacher level of conversations, collaboration, and sharing knowledge, experiences in that aspect? Was that question clear on that?
No, it was. I was just trying to think. I don't know of any kind of coordinated way in which that's happened. We have one school that is is co-located between a charter school and one of our elementary schools, and they coexist. I think at their best they're working together, and at other times it's they're roommates in the house, and that can be tough. So I don't think there's any big coordination across.
It's not a requirement and it's not funded, so I think for those reasons.
I think, obviously it's for anyone to work on, but if there's any teachers listening that they're probably public school teachers or charter schools, I think having some type of, not high expectations, but just like some maybe unofficial working group or advisory on, sharing experiences. This is kind of frustrating, and it's not on any of you guys, because charter schools were started as not necessarily to experiment, but to start specific programs or do things that you couldn't necessarily do in traditional Providence public school districts. And here we are decades later, and there's no fluidly relationship, or maybe, hopefully someone's listening and they call me after the meeting and correct me, but I mean, the whole reason charter schools were started, at least from my understanding, was to take lessons learned and, apply them to traditional public school districts, and it just doesn't seem like that's happening, and hopefully someone will call me later and correct me. But that's just so disappointing to be in a position 20, 30 years later of what an idea was, and to see it be completely something different, and no one trying to work towards going back to point A and putting some of these principles in place. It just doesn't really make sense to me, but I guess that's local government at times in our society. Councilor Graves.
Just a comment. I was around when the first charter school started. Matter of fact, one of my children went to one. It was never meant to be a competition, which it became. It was never meant to take monies from the public schools, drain money from the public schools to fill or take care of the charter schools. It was a wonderful conception, but I think it's kind of grown into a monster, because now they're vying for each of them are vying for children, and the kids are a commodity, but I don't know if it's a great thing, especially when you're saying that they're getting the foundation basically from the public school, if most of them are leaving in the 6th and 7th and 8th grade. So they got the foundation from us, and now they're going somewhere else. And our schools are closing down or falling down. I think it's a sad state of affairs myself. And I don't think it was meant to be that. I think, we all know that some kids do better under a different, tutelage. They do, some are better off learning at home, homeschool. Some are better off in private school or whatever. But the public schools are there for everybody. And 9 times out of 10, it's the poorest ones that have to go to the public schools. And they have no choice. And so they get a lottery. So now it's like we're pitting the kids against one another. And that's the only bad thing now. Because I don't think it was ever meant to be this, but it is this. And it's sad, because our kids are now fighting, and parents are fighting amongst each other because of education, when all the kids deserve a good education, no matter where they are. That's just my comment.
Thank you. Sorry, we kind of.
No, all good. I mean, hey.
That conversation was gonna happen at some point, and it looked like a good opportunity.
I think about kind of budgets that we're talking through. The one nuance I'll add for this year, and I'll point to if you look in the services column, row, between the third to last and last bullet. So there's a unique thing happening this year where there was what used to be a charter school, the Cranston Area Technical Center, is being converted from a charter school to a school district school of Cranston. And so typically we would be paying out tuition on the charter line, we are now paying it out on the CTE line. It ends up being about a wash financially, but it will make those one line move up in a way that normally you would expect that CTE line to not be as high, and the charter schools actually be a little bit higher. Last one I would mention is our custodial line. So we went out to bid several years ago, 4 years ago at this point, and so it's a contract that was awarded in 3 years and then two-year extensions. Next year will be the first year of our extension contract, and the way this was bid out was that it is flat. The fees are flat for every term of the contract. So for the first few years, the rate that we paid did not go up. which was good. And so, but it does increase. It has an escalator in the extension years for the coming year. It was the current vendor is far less than the other the next lowest cost bidder, and it translates to roughly a 3% or 3.5% increase annually. So feels like this is, well, it's a large dollar amount in terms of what we would see if we were going up to bid again or with another vendor. It feels like we're in a good spot. The remainder of our budget is relatively small, so supplies is materials and goods for schools. There's slight reductions there as we have rolled out a lot of our high quality curriculum and have some fewer students. Capital, that is not it's not capital in the sense of like building construction, but it is things like durable goods like equipment and furniture. And so one of the cost cutting measures was to reduce our planned Chromebook purchases for the following year. I think we'd have to find some alternative funding to support that. So in addition to addressing our reserves, should there be extra funding to this, we would like to restore this line because we do need to maintain technology as a one-to-one district.
What was the total projected cost on those Chromebooks?
So we're purchasing now for next year, and for the number of students, it's like around $2 million.
Yeah, the price keeps going up monthly for these Chromebooks, given what's happening overseas. So originally it was about a $1.6, $1.7 million. Now it's grown to about $2 million to replace 4,300 Chromebooks.
And the way we do it is we buy one for every third grader, sixth grader, ninth grader, because they have about a 3-year shelf life. And so either those stay in school or they follow the student for those 3 years and then are replaced. So while we are all set, we'll be purchasing those for next year. Come this time next year, we have to identify an alternative funding source. Lastly, utilities have been doing well. We continue to work with the city on an energy credits agreement that we believe is mutually beneficial to both the city and the district.
Councilor Pichardo?
Seeing that you just concluded that part,
Yeah.
I want to go back a couple of things on the highlight. There's some questions, and I was able to catch a little bit of the PPSD meeting last night. But I got some notes here. On the transportation end, why is it important to add positions there? And why not continue managing what you have now? What has increased and what has changed?
Yeah, for sure. So transportation, several years ago, we had a role that oversaw transportation and a little bit of registration. That role was reduced when we had state budget reductions. I think we have felt the challenge with having that position eliminated, so we're proposing to restore it as the executive director of transportation for next year. I think a few things. We put out a survey to our principals 3 months ago at this point and asked them what their biggest operational concerns and challenges were. Transportation came through number one. I suspect as we talk to parents, that's often a concern we've heard as well about. It's not that it's not performing. It's performing fine, but it's not performing to continue having the level of attendance we want and to continue delivering the service we want. It just the pain point we hear from our schools and teachers are transportation. As you can tell, it also has a significant financial impact to the district. So every additional bus the district pays about $100,000. So additional resources that can reduce the number of buses that we use. The position can help reduce that by 1 or 2 buses that can pay for itself. And the last thing I'd say is beyond the need and the hurt we felt not having that role, the service issues that we want to address, and the funding that comes with it. Transportation is becoming increasingly complicated for the district. Some of you know we have 4 schools in swing space, so we're having to transport students to different parts of town. We have pre-K through 8 schools that are rolling up. We have middle schools that are winding down. So lots of changes in enrollment that impact transportation, along with the growing pre-K and special education population. So beyond wanting to provide better service, save money, it has become more complex, and we think that despite we're making overall more reductions in central office than we are in schools, it's felt like an area that is worthy of investment.
So out of that survey and then your projection, as you were saying, is that there's going to be some savings. Do you know what kind of savings is it going to provide?
So for next year, we're anticipating reducing by four buses, and I think, which is substantial. I also think really will, obviously, as we're facing financial challenges for this year, and we see enrollment declines coming in future years, we're gonna have to make some bigger changes the year after next. And so a lot of that has to do with how we adjust bell times, other transportation policies. And so while we're anticipating some reductions in buses next year, I think a lot of the goal will be for the following year to continue to see more reduction based on some bigger changes.
And what does that like equal to in terms of the four buses? I mean, what's the dollar amount?
Each bus is like $100,000, so it's about $400,000.
400,000.
So the number you see in the transportation line reflects an increase in the rates for transportation, but a reduction in the number of buses.
All right. Great. Since he's not here, I'll continue if you don't mind. So also on the elimination of teachers, social studies teachers, and so forth. Yesterday, the board also agreed that they should be dismissed. How many teachers in total are being dismissed? And are we replacing them also with a teacher assistant, or what's the reasoning behind that? And also, I know there's a strategy to attract more teachers to the district. Why that change?
Yeah. So a couple things. So last night, the superintendent and the team recommended and the board approved the layoff and non-renewal of 22 teachers. It's worth putting in context when you look at other districts. Johnston is laying off around 80 teachers. Let me pull up the other numbers that we're looking at. Johnson had sent out 89 layoff notices, Newport 17, Warwick 42, Pawtucket 46, Cranston not yet determined, but expected to be substantially higher. So I share that not to, we take no pleasure in obviously this happening in other districts, but to note like we are significantly larger than most of those districts, and we are actually seeing fewer teacher layoffs. So I think that's one important point to note. The layoffs that are occurring are in areas where we do not need as many teachers. So we've had, I'll give you a few examples. One of the larger categories was elementary teachers who are not ESL certified. All of our elementary classrooms at this point require ESL certification. We've moved away from models where you had what they call sheltered classrooms and where people do not mix with their peers, to one where every classroom has non-multilingual learners and multilingual learners. So we have a number of teachers that did not get the ESL certification as we've supported over the years, and so we do not have roles for people who don't have that ESL certification. So that was a group of people that were let go. We also have had declines in it's kind of an older certification of business education. So business education was a program that we've seen fewer and fewer students choose as they've had more CTE opportunities as computer science has come in as a field of study. So you just have do not have a need for those types of positions anymore. While that is happening, it is still true we are desperately searching and fight every day to make sure we have enough math, special ed, and science teachers. So we're living in this world where we have some areas where we have more teachers than we need in certain subject areas, and other areas where we're still actively recruiting. There's a positive bit of news is that we are, as of today, looking at next year, have less than 60 vacancies, which is far, far fewer than we've had at this point in the past. We started this year with in the mid-70s in terms of vacancies, which was lower than the numbers prior to the intervention. And so, not to jinx it, but we are hopeful that we will continue the positive trend, hopefully the school year with fewer vacancies. So big picture is that all teacher positions are needed. We don't need to have the same number of needs depending on the certification area. So while we still need math and special ed, there are areas where we don't need as many teachers.
And last one on this one, those teachers that are being let go, are they offered those opportunities to stay on board, but pursuing those degree or at least getting those specialties?
We have offered, so I would say, not just this year, but every year, so the elementary teachers I mentioned, for the past 4 years, we offered teachers $8,000 to get their ESL certification and elementary. For whatever reason, these individuals did not take it. So, we've already kind of issued the notices, if someone were to get another certification for which we need later, we'd absolutely welcome them to apply back. But they would need to apply because we felt like we gave these opportunities for folks to get the certifications that we need.
And if they get to apply back, it's like starting over again from their sort of years in the system?
It's a good question. I don't think it restarts it certainly doesn't restart their state retirement and anything like that. I would have to check with it's dictated by the teachers union contract, whether they have their seniority resets. But they wouldn't lose their retirement. Their salary would be about what it was before, whatever the district seniority might be.
Thank
you. I think we're gonna cover the topic of FTE next, right? So let's go through this. Let's ask some questions on FTEs. We'll go through this.
So what I
page first and
go through 17 just to give an overview, and then I'm sure people have individual questions. So we categorize this in a few ways. One, the first table is by type of position, and the second is by whether it's a school or a central office position. So the first column is the current final FY26 budget, and 26-27 is our proposed budget for the coming year. I think headlines are that we are reducing by headcount by about 4% or 109 FTEs. The biggest portion is in absolute terms is in teaching roles, which is 67. Though that is by far the biggest employee group that we have. So the 4% decline is roughly mirrors the 4% decline in teaching staff. Much of that is in what we see is in middle and high school teachers, because those are the areas where we have seen enrollment declines. We did as much as we could to maintain support staff like guidance counselors and social workers. So if it's helpful, at the start of the intervention in FY20, we had 51 social workers. We are projecting 63 for FY27, and that is that increase of more than 20% is at a time we have 4,000 fewer students. So I share that in that line that has teacher roles. Much of that is in classroom teachers based on enrollment declines that we've seen. Where we've seen the only area of slight growth was teacher assistants, and that has to do with we continue to see our special education influx that happened several years ago. Those students are now growing older, and we still have a high need coming in of our pre-K students coming in kindergarten. So we've had to add a handful of additional special education classrooms. Many of those come with 2 to 3 teacher assistants. And so even while we're seeing declines in other areas, we aren't seeing declines in special education, which really drives that teacher assistant line. Where you see the kind of biggest percentage reductions are in both certified administrators, that top line, as well as clerical staff, both at the admin building and in schools. When we look at on a location basis, we have the percent of school-based staff members is down by 2%, or 96.5 FTEs, and central office staff down by 5%, or 12.5 FTEs. So I think obviously the important thing to note is our central office like many central offices is a small portion of our overall workforce, less than 10% of our overall staff work in the central office. And when we made reductions here, we made them portionally higher at our central office. But I'm happy to pause and talk to anything that's on this chart or anything in the other.
Any question, committee members or pro tem chart on? Yes, I have a couple of.
So,
Go ahead.
just going back to the teachers, but under the counselors, what is, have we increased the counselors? What is the ratio now per student?
We're typically pretty close to 1 to 250, which is one of the, it's like a recommended national best practice. I don't know if you're able to tell, I believe we increased from last year to this year by 1 or 2. And that has to do with, we had K-8 schools that were adding 6th and 7th grade, and so those schools typically did not have counselors before that, maybe now they're having this year.
Are we proposing any changes, increasing counselors on that end?
Yeah, so I think we can get to the exact change from year to year, but I believe it was a 1 to 2 overall increase in district from this year to the next. Into the guidance.
Counselors, not students.
Counselors.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right.
So the ratio will still be around 1 to 250 for next year.
I think that's okay.
All right, this isn't on this page, but something that I keep hearing, I've heard it over the past few years, and I've never really have locked into it, because it didn't really impact us too much before, but now it certainly does. What's, I've heard, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is just stuff that I kind of talk to people about, like service level. Can you guys explain like the layoff notices? From my understanding, it can happen whenever, but closer to the end of the year. I hear a June 1st date and a July 1st date. What's, I guess there's like different requirements. Can you speak to that a little bit, Deputy Superintendent?
Absolutely. So that is in state law. So there's a June 1 notification for fiscal exigency. So districts that have to do layoffs for financial reasons. There's a June 1 deadline. There's an earlier deadline that if you're non-renewing a non-tenured teacher for performance reasons, that's March 1st. But the deadline to do layoffs is June 1. And part of the reason so we obviously have to hit that statutory deadline, or if we can't, it's null and void. But it also allows us, the earlier you do it, the more people you end up laying off, because you don't see attrition over the spring. So what we can do is, we knew if there were areas that were potentially tight, but then we might have people resign, tell us they're retiring, they get promoted, and then we don't need to do layoffs. So the later we do it, the more time we then get to make sure we don't have to lay off more than we need to. But the June 1 is not a district construct, not even a state collective bargaining. It's a state law.
And that's for fiscal purposes.
For fiscal exigency, it's the exact statute, it says fiscal exigency or program reorganization. So basically, you're closing a school, you're adding a bunch of math and adding a bunch of English, like if you wanted to change your programming, or there are financial pressures on the district that force you to do that.
So after June 1st, there can't be another set of layoffs, or what?
Not for certified teachers. So for other staffs that are not certified teachers, there are typically less state regs that govern that. So if the central office staff, other teacher assistants presumably, but central office staff, there aren't any same regulations. So there could be further layoffs, just not to certified teachers.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Another question in terms of vacancies. So you said projected next calendar year is 60?
Yeah, where we're at now, it changes obviously daily.
54.
Thank you. 54.
Thank you. I guess like how does the layoff notices impact that? Like is that?
It doesn't. I mean, I think so. The way layoffs happen are areas where we have more people than positions. So for example, the elementary teachers or the business teachers, there are no vacancies in those areas, but there are in business, there were 4 teachers that did not have a role. So it does not create more vacancies, it's actually for areas where there are more people than there are vacancies.
Right. That makes sense. Because, yeah, I mean, obviously you guys have explained it very well, but I think just a challenging surface level, confusing thing that a lot of people in our community question and face with is all the, you know, not all, but the 100 teachers or whatever being laid off. I'm gonna go back because the way I worded that was not right. So starting back, the point I'm making here is when teacher notice layoffs go, you know, in the 10s, 20s, more in this case, while at the same time seeing like the vacancy number, like trying to inform people on how those intersect. I think it's something that we could all maybe do a slightly better job in messaging. And obviously I'm just speaking from what I see, you know, there's I'm sure a lot more of these conversations happen the school board and between administrators and teachers directly. But that's just my something that I've kind of had to speak to neighbors about in the past.
I mean, I think a good analogy is if you are in an organization that requires drivers, and you have people who have a driver's license, and you have people who don't have a driver's license, and the jobs without a driver's license decrease, you keep the people with the driver's license. You might offer the people without an opportunity to earn a driver's license, but if they don't, you can't keep them.
Right.
So I think that's the analogy. So the teachers that are going are the people without the driver's license, and we need the people with the driver's license right now. We did pay for ESL training, driver's license. We did offer opportunities to get special ed certified driver's license, but people chose not to take the route to get those driver's license. So we have to keep the people with the driver's license, hire more people with driver's license because we don't have enough people with driver's license. And people who didn't get the driver's license, we can't keep.
That makes sense. Thank you. Was there any other questions on this slide before we continue?
Can I also mention that this is not something that just happens, this happens every year.
Right.
And the communication is constantly going out, reminding everyone, but this is not a one and done. This is every year reevaluation of who do we have, who do we need to serve. So we want to make sure that we have the right people in front of those students to give them the best opportunity to be successful.
The last thing I want to say is, you know, obviously these finances are extremely important, but I think I just want to, you know, give space to anyone that's impacted. You know, we understand this is a tough decision. There's a lot of emotions, understandably. You know, some of these teachers have sacrificed a lot to be in our schools, are super committed to our students and families. And this is a really crappy part of the process, and anything that we can do to make it less crappy, you know, as honestly as speaking as possible, you know, let's try to do that.
I understand, but we also want to make sure that it's clear that this is not the first time that's been heard. There's been years, it's been in the making for years, so we've been reminding them, you're gonna need these licenses. This state, look, you need these licenses, so we were reminding everyone for years. I mean, it's like that old saying, I can lead a horse to water, I can't force him to drink. I can give you the light, I can make sure you try to get those licenses. We're paying for them, take the opportunity and go get those licenses so you can maintain.
But I guess just to be clear, so any of the teachers that were laid off was because they didn't have a certain certification to fulfill the need of the school district.
Yeah, it's an area that we just had, we did not have a need for. The business is one that over time has been, fewer students have requested those classes, fewer classes have been served, and therefore fewer business teachers.
Makes sense. Councilor Pichardo?
And I'll piggyback. So the same thing with social studies teachers. Don't need them as much. I know, and they didn't get that additional certification. I know, so this budget, keeping in mind that we, city council and the mayor, we've been saying, we want the schools back for next year, and now we have. This budget, while you were crafting it, was being thoughtful and prepared with this transition in mind. Is there other things that, now that it's a reality, that it's in our lap, in your lap, in our lap, that we should be mindful of? That right now you're saying, well, before it was 50-50. Now it's like, oh yeah, it's here. So should we have planned for something else, budget-wise, position-wise? Is there something that now that's missing?
Yeah, well, and tell me if this is not answering your question, but what comes to mind is like, as we come back to local control, what any kind of, from a budget perspective, what are some, aside from kind of educating on how our budget works, like any thoughts? And I think what I will share for this year is obviously a very challenging fiscal year. We had to make a number of reductions that led to staff losing their role. I think one of the positive things was we had clarity on the city contribution. So we had an agreement with, from the city, we knew what that was, and so we could plan early on for what was coming. So what I would advocate for is, as we move forward in the coming years, how can we, learn from the past of moving away from level funding or having some foresight into what funding would be for the district from the city. And I know the city has a lot of challenging decisions to make and always hard to forecast beyond multiple years. But the more, half of it is how much money, maybe more than that. A portion of it is how much money you have, and a portion of it is how much you know and how much certainty you have, because lack of funds and uncertainty are both challenging. So my ask would be is how we think beyond next year and the years beyond, so that we all can have a understanding of what city aid will be for the district, because I think it helps us all plan better, and even if the news isn't great, the earlier you have that news, the better.
I think the reserves too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we currently are able to keep the reserves, and if there's an emergency, we're able to take care of that. Like right now, we didn't lay off as many people as we would have had to had we not had those reserves, right? We're using those $3 million. It's the district's responsibility to maintain a budget that isn't overspent, that we're not in deficit, that we're being fiscally responsible. And part of that is just like when you have your own budget, to have that rainy day fund. So when that emergency happens in your home, you're able to take care of it. And so I think that is something, if you're asking about something that we need to consider, that is something that wasn't there before, and I think is important to consider.
And just to double down on that, so as we, the spot we're in now is there's a potential increase in state aid that may come or may not come. If we did not have reserves, we could not plan on that General Assembly vote, and so we would be cutting, we'd be coming here with $3 million worth more cuts.
Right.
Now that we know, okay, there's this possibility that funding may come, reserves allow us to have a backup plan in case those funds, and essentially that prevents us from overspending. In addition to emergencies, it means that we can have a bit of an insurance policy in case state aid or something else happens. So that I think has allowed us to, we would have these, absent that, we would be cutting $3 million, and then all of a sudden on Monday, we'd be adding a bunch of stuff back in a way that's not helpful.
Go ahead. It's also important to think about what we actually receive versus what we actually pay out for some of our students that are differently able, because that can, one for an individual's child may cost X, Y, Z. Let's just, I'm gonna throw a number out there. Let's say it costs $30,000 to educate one child per year. When it comes to a student who we have to evaluate to figure out exactly what that child needs to have the services wrapped around it, that $30,000 can turn into $60, can turn into $90, can turn into $100,000 for that one child. So we also have to think about that, like which are the students, how many students are we receiving? They're going to be needing extra supports.
I have two things. The first thing is just to confirm, have you guys or do you have the power to use your reserve funds for anything other than a deficit in your budget?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we don't think of it as like a checking account where it's like, hey, we got this unfinished expenditure. It would just be if at the end of the year our expenditures exceeded our revenue, we would use it.
And that has been used in the past to cover a deficit, or?
It was only used in the years where we had settlement agreement with the city where we planned our budget for X amount of dollars and the settlement agreement was for less, and so the reserve we used to fill that gap. So for last year, we were running a slight surplus.
Right. Thank you. And back to Councilor Pichardo's point, as long as I'm a city councilor, I mean, you know, obviously none of us were here when a lot of the level funding for a decade pretty much occurred. Well, while I'm here as a city councilor, I'm committed to always increasing our contribution to our kids. I think this is literally the most important investment that we can make as a city. I'm a strong believer that public education and access to it is the foundation to any thriving society. But at the same time, like I have that commitment. But then we see stuff with the funding formula of charter allocation money, and I think that's where we all need to, you know, participate in not only the city's side of it, but also up at the State House, because this is back to my point. I don't want to be on the point too much. It's just unsustainable. We can contribute increasing our budgets, but the expenditure is it's outpacing our pension obligation funds, and it's just unsustainable and unrealistic. It's not even sustainable, it's just not realistic. So I mean, I think that's something that we all need to be committed to working together to address not only our contribution, but the way some of the funding formula is allocated to the State House, because the way it's written right now and what we're seeing is it just does not make sense at all. And if anyone disagrees, if anyone wants to add anything, you're more than welcome to.
Well, I just want to say, that's why I asked, in a sense, now that we have the reality, I think that people that are sitting at this table also are members of the Hope Committee, and we can go into more of a detail in terms of this transition and how we're going to go about it. And we have obviously a lot of questions, and I think that going forward, knowing that we were prepared and asking for the schools to return back to us in Providence and have that oversight from the PPSD and the board, et cetera. I think that that's why I asked those questions, because I think it's important to know right up front if there are other things that might be in the horizon and no surprises. And that's why I asked that. And I know that Councilwoman Jill Davidson is focusing on a task force that was focusing on the transition. So we're going to continue to have those all hands on deck in a sense, but in a positive way to make sure that we continue that momentum of increasing the right support for our students, the right monies, and lastly, asking the General Assembly to put more money into the kids. I was around, yes, as a father and as a young person, and I was in the Senate during those times. And
so young,
right? No one said that I'm old. It was to close that achievement that we continuously saw because our public school system was not graduating enough students and going on to college and finishing their degrees within those times because they were not prepared as much. And so I know what we were looking for. Before, parents just had the choice of sending a kid to private school or public school. And that was it. And so the other challenges that we have now, people knew already that this was going to happen in terms of parents are the ones that make the decision to actually make the best choice for their kids. And so that's what we're seeing right now. And so we at the table are committed to making sure that we continue in that right path. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thanks, sir. Councilor Peterson, just a quick question. Are we gonna go over anything else besides this packet? I'm just trying to.
No,
Keep
we're
us
happy to go, if people have questions on deeper into the ordinances, we're happy to do this, but
This is all you plan on presenting though, the packet? Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to make sure we.
Yep.
I don't mind being here until 10, but
I don't know about everybody else.
midnight, yeah, that's pushing it, so I gotta plan a little bit. Councilor Peterson?
Quick question, well, actually, there's a question and a follow-up. Out of your reserve, do you get to replenish it annually?
if you were to run a surplus, you would.
Let me start off by saying that I really want to applaud all of your achievements. I think that you have delivered on so many marks, and I think it's absolutely unbelievable. Absenteeism, graduation rates, more in CTE. We're seeing everything that we need to set up a child to thrive, and I very much applaud that. I think it's one of the things that the task was set and you guys achieved. And in my opinion, you're knocking it out of the ballpark. I know that we still have a way to go, but I am really, really proud of how far we've come. I'm a little bit worried that we're considering using so much of your reserve to be able to fill this hole. And I am genuinely concerned about what comes, not just this coming year, but the following year and the following year. It looks like the projections are that our enrollment is coming down. We are building these wonderful new schools, which is absolutely going to be extremely beneficial. However, we haven't even come to the new school build situation yet, and
It's another conversation.
and I am genuinely concerned about what a projection for next year and the following year are. And I'm not saying cut in any way, but I am saying we need to do a little bit more, because a rainy day fund is meant for a rainy day fund, right? And I am worried about that rainy day fund coming also next year and the year after, because we're not hitting our marks. And when we have all of these moving parts, whether it's money being expended in being transitioned into a charter school for a student, or the higher cost of transportation, or you name it, a variety of things that just have been presented even just today, I really worry that we're not going to be able to have any sort of additional reserve. And so I just want to put that on record, because I think that while this is extremely well thought out and prepared, I'm just worried that we're not gonna, and as a city, we've balanced for this year. However, 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, we were told this is all in your hands now. And I'm really worried about that.
We are equally concerned about the use of reserves, because it doesn't set us up for long-term success. I'll share it, hopefully it's not out of turn. I am hopeful that, and optimistic that the proposed success factor will help us go through next year without actually even having to use it. It's not gonna change any of our reductions, because it'll probably balance out. But I do think whether it's next year or the year after, we are gonna have to think through, we've cut 100 FTEs for this next year. We've, over the past, since the start of the intervention, are down 500 FTEs. Yeah. So we're making reductions, but I do think we're coming to this point where it's gonna be harder, there's nothing easy left to do.
Right.
And so we'll have to think of some of our big cost drivers, and how we address them. So transportation, there are ways you can move from two sets of belt times to 3. It causes all types of problems, but it can save money on transportation. We are losing enrollment, so at some point we might need to, I think we've taken steps, and they were painful, in reducing the number of some middle schools and elementary schools. Yeah. We have some high schools that are getting very, very small at this time. I mean, not right this moment, but we've had, I think, what we knew were kind of longer term enrollment declines really seem to accelerate this year. So like, we're gonna have to make collectively, some decisions, whether it's next year, may not be next year, but it'll soon be after, about bigger changes, whether it's, again, transportation, special education, benefits, district footprint, like those are coming our way, because we can't do small cuts.
Can I just add, we're talking operations, right? But we need to start talking about students. What are those things that we have carved out of the budget because we're balancing that we cannot provide to students or to teachers in the way that would allow us to accelerate faster? What does this mean for professional development? What does this mean for after-school tutoring and acceleration programs? What does this mean for summer programming? We've been doing April and February academies for students. What does this mean for that? So we're having a conversation about things we can control to some degree, operational things, but we're not having a conversation about what really matters. And that are the things that are going to drive student outcomes. And a balanced budget, although is something we want to achieve, doesn't necessarily mean it's all the things the students and teachers need to continue to improve.
Thank you.
Well, I think, let me just,
follow up,
yeah.
Councilor Pichardo.
Well, that's why I asked earlier, and that's why we say that we're going to dig deeper in the whole committee, because it includes that education, because I see, for example, here, and maybe you can justify it, and I was gonna ask in terms of the opportunities for grant writing. I see that the grant writing has been eliminated, but in a sense, it has been merged with something else. I see the manager for multilingual learner, that was manager, that's been cut. And so when we've done,
In MLLs.
right, so when we've done some great improvement, now we're also eliminating these kind of things. That's where I start looking at more deeper, and that's why I asked earlier on, is that's, we're gonna be, you know,
There was a question.
I just don't want us to go back, and we are,
Yeah.
this body here, and the chairman just indicated, and we, is that we are going to continue to have those conversations of what really matters is that those are the teachers, the students, and those outcomes, because that's what got us into trouble in the beginning.
And I just want to address, there was a question last night about, what are we doing with these positions because we're changing titles? We are. We decreased by merging positions and having people do multiple jobs. Where we used to have 2 people doing a job, now we have 1 person doing a job, right? And so we're trying to have the least impact on the classroom. In order to do that, we have to offset somewhere else, but we still need the work to continue. And so that's why you're seeing something like that.
I just want to say something that I forgot to say at the beginning. Really important part, actually. I told committee members earlier this week that it's important that we're having this conversation now. Some folks question like maybe we should postpone it a little bit, or give the transition a little more time. But I think it was super important to get into the weeds as much as possible. This committee to have a thorough understanding of what we have before us and how we can support as much as possible. But I made it clear that this is the first of many conversations with you all, a combination of you, maybe other folks from PPSD. This is it's gonna be a partnership as much as possible. So just know you will be invited again in the somewhat near future, and hopefully you accept that. But thank you. Councilor Graves and Councilor Davidson.
Mine's gonna be on procurement, and we're not quite there.
All right, we'll save it then.
Yeah.
All right, Councilor Davidson.
I have a specific question about MLL department reductions. If you're gonna get to it, then I'll be happy to table it, but since it came up, I wanted to ask, which is, when I went through the budget, I noticed a very significant drop for the 4.3 million to 1.9 million. And I was wondering how, my specific question is, how does that affect students?
Yeah, let me look at the position changes. So I think there were a few changes that happened. It is an area where we've added positions since the start of the intervention, so there might have been more, a couple positions early on. So we had to make some administrative reductions. I think the biggest change we saw was that there, if you look in section 18 of the classification ordinance, there were 8 teacher roles that were providing additional coaching to teachers who need to be assessed certification. There's a little bit less of that, and I think some of these that have actually been pushed to the school level for funding purposes. Is that, do I have that right?
Yes, and then there's also less teachers that need to coach, there's more teachers certified.
And the third thing is the state has changed the way that the teachers can get the certification. So the way we were doing it is getting phased out. So they have to go through full certification now rather than coaching certification. So this is the grandfather year, and then it changes. And so the way we were doing it with the staff members, that's no longer a way that we can or are allowed to do it. So, yeah.
And
What
just
is the
to,
difference?
could I just follow up? What is your estimation about how this is going to impact students? If at all?
Yeah, I would say the lead of this department, Jen Fund, does a wonderful job with her team of providing guidance and support to schools. There will be less of that. In terms of direct services to students, we still have ESL certified staff in schools, and so the direct services will still happen with some of the administrative positions that have been able to support that, but we just have to be able to.
The training is fairly, is an increased intensity, actually, not a decreased. There's coursework that they have to do, and then there is a whole certification process. And they also have coaching, but in a different way than it was previously. So it's a change, but it's actually upping the game and increasing the level of rigor for that training. Before they just got an endorsement, and now teachers going through this will get a full certification. Teachers who did the endorsement in Providence maintain that endorsement, but it's not portable. They can't take it with them. Under the certification, they can use it in Providence and beyond, because it is at that next level. So it's just a change in the way that that part happens.
I appreciate that explanation, and I do know that the district has increased capacity at the classroom level significantly
Yes.
per your previous.
Yes. And we have fewer teachers who are now required because so many have already done it. So it makes sense that whereas before we might have to do 800 hours, and now we only have to do 200 hours because only 25% of the teachers still have to go through the process.
Okay, thanks.
Counselor Graves?
Oh. I'm sorry, I have to find it. Can you come back to me?
Procurement?
Yeah, the procurement. Oh, yeah, I wanted to know about, we're talking about cuts and stuff. I was looking at some of the tech stuff that you have. And some of it seems like maybe we can get it for a lot cheaper or freer, because as was alluded earlier, the prices are going up opposed to coming down. And if there's some things that we can get for maybe free or at least a lot less. I know some of it is under contract, but I want to know what's under contract and when that contract is over. So we may look into other alternatives, such as that Canvas that you have.
I can speak to Canvas. Canvas is a platform that does multiple things for us. And because of the multiple things, it's actually a cost saver. So there's something called the Open Ed Resource Curriculum that is high quality and approved by the state. Because we have Canvas, our Open Ed Science curriculum, and our illustrative math curriculum, those we don't have to pay for the curriculum cost itself.
Okay.
Because we have the platform to deliver to the students and the teachers. If we did not have the platform, we would actually be purchasing a much higher curriculum cost for math and science. It also is the system that delivers our professional development to our teachers. So that professional development, for example, that we're talking about for the teachers who are getting the MLL certification, we're able to build that in Canvas and we don't have to pay for another system. In addition, all of the outcomes that we're able to report on, those are coming in through Canvas. And so we don't have to purchase an additional data system in order to have that data because it's coming right through the Canvas system. So not only that, the majority, at least 60% of colleges in the United States, including Brown, use Canvas as their system, which means if our students graduate from us and they go to these places of higher education, they've already had significant training in how to use that system, and they're ahead of their peers who are entering who have not had the opportunity to use that system. So it actually helps them navigate college, especially for first-gen students. All right, that's one less thing that is new to them because our district has provided it and they've been using it since they were younger.
And I'll use that, sorry, to build on that. There was a comment made in public comment at a school board meeting where someone quoted Canvas is costing $1.2 million to the district. It costs $286,000, so it's certainly substantial investment, but it was, the person was mistaken when they shared that in public comment. But we think of that as like the backbone of our curriculum for $286,000 across 20,000 students. It's a range of districts.
And you said that Brown is using that in
Yeah,
other
Brown
towns?
uses it too, yes.
Okay, maybe we can work something out, being Brown is supposed to be one of those.
Brown's listening.
Yeah, they're supposed to be doing community contribution.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
No.
I just was just an example. Other places do.
No, but they're supposed to be doing a community contribution to, maybe they can find some type of way of sharing this with the school department, so you're not paying for this.
I want to thank Brown for a few things. One thing, every year they give us $250,000 in grant money for us to be able to do innovative pieces and things with our students. So right now they're helping support our work with the PK8. They're also providing us with free tutoring for our students. So just so everyone is aware, they are a huge partner. They're supporting our libraries and providing a lot of resources for our libraries. So in addition to like the competitive grants we write, Brown is also a significant contributor to many of the programs, especially around acceleration and innovative programs like PK8 that we're investing in.
Wonderful, I'm glad they're doing that, and maybe they can contribute more.
They can always do more.
But there's several other ones. What is going on with that iReady?
iReady and Curriculum Associates is multiple pieces. But one thing people don't understand is it's part of our Elevation program. Elevations is the platform that we use for our MLL students and our MLL team. So it allows us to track the progress of the students who are multilingual learners. It provides the strategies and coaching modules for the teachers who are instructing students who are MLL. So when people hear Curriculum Associates, they think that's just iReady. A portion of that dollar amount is also Elevations. iReady is we're required to diagnose, provide a baseline assessment of our students at a minimum 3 times a year in literacy and numeracy. And so iReady is the system and the platform that does that. And one of the reasons why we selected that is because it correlates with how students do on RICAS. So we're able to have an early predictor of how our students will do on our state assessment. In the between time, in between the 3 times a year, there are things in iReady called standards mastery, which allows our students to have extra practice and teachers to have extra insight into how students are doing in terms of gaining those skills that are critical for them to become strong readers, writers, and mathematicians. So it provides us with those elements as well. And so iReady is multifunctional. And then there's also an early literacy component called magnetic reading for students who are English speakers. And who's, for students who their home language is Spanish, there's Mosaicos. And that helps us to build a strong early foundation program for literacy. So when you see curriculum associates, it's not just iReady, it's all of those things. So it's multiple parts of our program.
Okay, and what is your concern about the class action suit or that's
Yes,
connected
so
to iReady?
we have been monitoring the class action suit. There are components in iReady that we do not use, and our lawyers are closely monitoring all of those components and student data privacy. One of the things that was indicated is that some of the components in iReady should not be used for diagnosing certain things, and we're not using it in that way.
Yeah, and then after that, we'll continue on and then go back to questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
And the only other one is the new teacher project. Can you give us a little bit more
Yes.
about that and when does what does the contract entail and when does it expire?
So, Chris, you might be able to answer the question about when it expires. We've had several contracts with the New Teachers Project over time. Right now, the purpose and the function of the New Teacher Project is to work with administrators and teachers on delivery of high-quality curriculum and also on lesson internalization, which is how teachers are preparing to make sure that what they're delivering in the classroom is what is intended in the curriculum. So they've been really strong partners in that work with us. They are nationally recognized for their work around HQIM and with math progress, and so it's really critical. If you look at the research around teacher efficacy, collective teacher efficacy, that's the #1 factor in improving student outcomes. And so in order to invest in our students, we have to invest in our teachers and in our leaders, and New Teacher Project is one of our strongest partners in that arena.
If I could just add, so TNTP is also funded out, it's either Title II or Title IV, so it does not go into our local funding. It is part of that supplemental federal funds that are typically used. So Title II is used for teacher professional development, so it's kind of squarely within in that funding source. And, you know, that funding source you couldn't use to cover basic operating expenditures, so it's to support this type of work.
Okay. One tiny.
Counselor Graves, you can ask as many questions as you want.
Okay.
Stop with you.
You talk education all night long, it's fine.
Okay, with this AI situation
Yes.
getting out of hand and all, what are your concerns about all the screen-based learning and the connection between AI and all of this?
Yes, so we actually, under Dexter, who is our chief of operations, and myself, we have created a district task force to investigate what AI means in terms of teaching, learning, in terms of student data privacy, in terms of how we're operating and what we're using in terms of our decision making. And so it was really important that we dive very deep into those questions and do a strong level of investigation across the district to make those decisions. AI is changing so rapidly that what it looks like today in a month is very, very different. And so even today, we had a meeting with a potential vendor, and we started to ask questions about the AI component. The answers were concerning and alarming, and so we're asking more questions. One of the pieces that we're doing unique in Providence that we instituted as a team, because I brought forth those concerns. Companies were starting to add AI in, and it wasn't part of our contract, and they didn't tell us that they were adding it in, right? And so now in our contract process, that is something that we put in our RFPs and in our contracts, that if they are adding an AI or changing the way AI acts and communicates with us, that we need to be notified and have the ability to turn it off. So we do think that AI has a strong value add for many different reasons. But we also know that we have to take great responsibility to determine how we use that in the district.
Thank you.
Is there any school board members on that task force?
The task force was originally started by
Travis.
Travis, and Corey was a part of that, and so the internal group is, in the district, and now it will go to the, including the school board once we're a little bit further along in the process.
That's what I was asking. School board member Joe Jeffrey is very knowledgeable
Yes.
on AI. He's doing a lot of work at the state level when it impacts this. And I'm glad that you're asking this with contracts. That's something that we're seeing also in contracts that for us, and data sharing and cybersecurity, all of that is extremely, extremely important.
I'm part of a national task force with members of the Gates Foundation. We have a little technology task force from members across the country, and the AI in the contract piece has been a major conversation that we've been having all year, because as these companies are adapting so quickly, they're not necessarily including us in those decisions or what it means for teachers or students.
Right. Makes sense. The last question I have, Councilor
Honestly.
But if you have more, please let us know. The last question I had on this presentation, sorry that we kind of got stuck on it for a while, is substitute teachers, is that reflected in any one of these categories? And I guess, is that reflected in like the salaries component of the budget line items?
Yeah, so if you see at the top, in our appropriation ordinance, there's a salary line, there's a substitute line, and then there's an overtime.
Thank you. So just to confirm, is substitute teachers reflected in any of the position categories on page 17?
No, we don't budget, I mean, they don't have.
It's kinda hard
they
to-
work day to day, so it doesn't mean we don't budget for a meeting as much as a total dollar.
So what do you budget, like hours or?
We budget per day, so it's $180 per day.
How much is it?
$180 per day. That is for per diem. We also have a smaller portion of retirees who get a higher rate because they're certified. Long-term substitutes in pool. But we kind of look at spend over the past year. We make some projections for the next year based on vacancies. So we're looking at fewer vacancies for next year. So our hope is that we will spend less on that. So we have a small decline on our substitute line.
Just a question
Yeah,
to Chairman, and I have a question. Are we going to also go over the presentation regarding the homeless population?
It's part of this presentation. So,
Okay,
yeah, we're gonna go through this.
Thank you. Just the last one, can you speak to us regarding the procurement and the RFPs? Are you gonna continue as usual? And then two, is there opportunities for piggybacking with the state and other school districts? Does that exist at the municipal level or?
So we do have already taken advantage of that, piggybacking or cooperating with people. I mean, quick context was.
With whom?
The state MP.
Well, there's state, there's one called TIPS.
There's national Christian cooperatives that we belong to, that we can piggyback contracts.
In terms of procurement, so one of the first changes in the interventions, if you recall, the Johns Hopkins report, procurement, I remember walking in and being shocked at how much procurement was talked about in a report on education, but it was because it was really seen as a barrier to what happened in the district. So we worked with the State Department of Administration, the city treasurer at the time, RIDE, and developed another process that was aligned with state law, but allowed us to follow a more streamlined process. So it involves different thresholds. So anything that is above $5,000 is competitively bid. It's put out for RFP. But there's a different approval threshold. So things that are $200,000 or above are brought to the school board and voted on and publicly vetted. But we have lower thresholds where we have internal authority that as long as we follow the RFP process. But we haven't had any bid protests or lack of compliance, so we need to comply. We've seen a decline in the number of days from when our contractor's award, RFP was on the street, the contract awarded. It used to be 94, 95 days pre-intervention. It is 50-ish now. It is an area of concern as we come back because, and as we understand it, there's city charter that indicates that potentially bidding process and Councilman Davidson, but it's a topic of some of that committee, and we are very appreciative of her raising that important topic. But it is something we are nervous about as we come back because I think we've got 6 years of a track record of what's worked, both compliance-wise as well as getting things to students and teachers quickly. But we're worried about what happens when we go back to a pre-intervention process.
And the impact of making sure that we have everything that we need for teachers to teach on day one.
What's the worry? What is the process transition that is changing?
The length of time when you order, you go through the whole process and then coming back by the time we're able to order, make sure that the materials are in the building day one.
So the specific one is when we have a need, we put out an RFP. It reaches that threshold, we bring it to the school board of finance, they vote on it, goes to the school board, they vote on it.
So can I just jump in here? So members of PPSD, school board, RIDE, and administration have all been part of this working group that I convened. The question was, what could the city council do to support the successful return of the schools and make sure that students are getting what they need for excellent teaching and learning? That was like our framing question. The issue of procurement came up pretty quickly as something that we could focus on. And I think that, you all described the problem really well. That prior to the takeover, procurement for schools took a long time, and there was duplicative processes. The school board has their own internal processes, as Zach described, and then everything over the $10,000 threshold would also come to the Board of Contract and Supply. So we would do it twice. Now, we're not here to decide what we should do about that.
No.
I've been grateful for everybody's time to be able to weigh in, to understand the range of concerns there are and how we can maintain a speedy process, make sure that schools get everything that they need, make sure we're satisfying any needs that the city has for financial oversight. I am confident that we can probably find a way to get it done. But we also, as Zach mentioned, right now under city charter obligation to have some form of oversight and a purchasing agent. So we just need to make sure that we're clear about how we can get that done. We have one more meeting of my working group, after which I'm gonna be offering a recommendation to all of us about how to proceed. But we're not quite there. I think we're gonna get there. I'm not trying to shut down discussion about it here. I just wanna also.
We're gonna have it in Hope Committee.
Yeah, then it would go to the Hope Committee, exactly. So I'm not trying to shut down any conversation here. I just want to assure everybody that out of all the issues we've been talking about, we've been able to dig in and maybe come to at least be able to identify the challenge pretty clearly.
Yeah.
And identify ways to fix it. It could be someday we change the city charter.
Right.
But I don't think we're at that point now, especially given the time pressure that we're under.
Right. And I don't disagree with what what the need is. It's clear as day that there is a substantial difference between 94 days and 60
Nobody
or
is
50.
going back to 94.
However, one thing that comes to mind at the start of our term, if I'm not mistaken, was the ABM contract. And I certainly need to remember all of the parts to it, but I do believe that there are certain parameters that we need to just make sure that we're solidifying before taking proactive steps, not reactive, proactive steps. So I just, this is just spitballing at the top of my head as we're just talking about this conversation or having this conversation.
Yeah, I think that, there's a number of different ways we can go.
Yeah.
And I think we've identified some possibility where, for example, we could identify the school department as the purchasing agent until it hits a certain threshold, just like it does with other city departments. We don't know what that threshold should be. Certainly it would apply to multi-year contracts, so I think we have somewhere to play with in all of that. But, again, it's really, and I sound like a broken record, I know, but we have to do this in a way that teachers are getting what they need to teach and students are getting what they need to learn and principals are getting what they need to run their buildings, full stop. And if we as adults and bureaucrats are getting in the way of that, we're doing something wrong. So that's the attitude with which I have been pursuing that. With fully understanding the need for fiscal oversight and collaboration on that fiscal oversight.
If I could just make a point on the ABM contract, which I might be, the point you were making might be different than I think it was different than mine. Like, I actually think that's a good example of how the new process worked. So we had, there was a prior contract that had been there 15 years, like, it had not been bid out. And so, like, we all wondered why the facilities were in the shape they were. And it's not because the old vendor didn't have good people and they weren't trying, like, they were, but it was not performance-based. It was a contract that just said, sweep the floor 3 times a day, even if it needs to be swept.
Moderately dingy.
Yeah, moderately dingy. It was one where, as buildings came online and offline, there was no rhyme or reason about how that happens. Now we have a formula that says when in this construction, like, when we take buildings offline, we actually save money. So, like, I don't know, I didn't want to speak for what you were mentioning, Councilwoman, but I think it was a contract that was hard and there was a lot of noise about who the district should go with, and we had a public process with that was reviewed by the school board, and we got a vendor that was different than the incumbent that had been in for decades.
I certainly don't disagree with the process by which it was done. I just remember that there was a very long, arduous conversation that went around it, and it caused a little bit more noise, just like you mentioned, and it's something that certainly bodes highlighting in an effort to make everything better, right? So I think that there's definitely, look, if there's new, procurement is the thing that I've wanted to do most and really delve into the most in the city. And I think that I spent maybe 3 months really trying to invest my time, and I said, I'm lost. So and then I learned it from the state perspective, and that's not that much easier. So and I very much understand how difficult and involved this process is. I just want to make sure that, obviously, to the point that Councilor Davidson made, which is the reason, such a great point to try and make sure to highlight for the schools, and as we're progressing with return, that we take into consideration all of the necessary pieces that will make it flow better. I'm just gonna wait for my questions again.
Alrighty, we'll continue, page 18.
All right, we will try to move quickly to the last section because I know that was something especially requested. Slide 18, not a ton of new information here aside from state aid. We know we're still waiting on that. That's going to be important. We're still waiting on some exact figures from transportation for statewide. The one thing we haven't mentioned that I think is worth calling out is it pertains to the legislatures. There's legislation pending on UCAP. So this is a collaborative that the district has been participating in. It used to be 5 districts.
It was 5 then, when I walked in, it was 3. Maybe a year and a half into my being on the board, it turned to 1. For the last 3 years, I have been the committee of 1, the board of 1. And I asked multiple times to get extra support from other communities, and didn't happen, still hasn't happened. I had to make a very tough decision, but a very easy decision when it came to looking at data and putting students first. So that was my reason for saying, I can't do this, we can't do this, we can't allow ourselves to continue doing this.
So all those 4 other communities have exited that partnership. Years ago, we were the only one kind of hung on the longest. But we followed the same process they did. There's a state law that requires notification by January 1. We did that. The district spends, $2 to $3 million, both in expenditures and state aid, $2 to $3 million to support roughly 100 students. We heard that the program, I think decades ago, may have been successful, but the data was showing worse outcomes compared to the district in serving not as many multilingual students, not as many students with IEPs. There's legislation to undo that, so essentially the state law that we followed would be changed. If that were to happen, we would immediately have a $2 million impact in state aid funding to the district, or in state aid and expenditures. So we testified against that because it would have such a negative impact. And if someone asked any of us if we had $2 million, would you use that to sustain this program? And I think there are plenty of other places we could perhaps.
Counselor Davidson?
Yeah, I just want to add a comment, which is that when sort of this decision was getting made and being made public, I reached out to you to ask to superintendent and to assistant superintendent Dillon to find out about what was going to happen to those Providence students who are currently attending UCAP. You gave me a very detailed and satisfactory answer. So if that was in your heads, I wanted to sort of.
What was the answer?
Thank you.
You all can.
I think it's important for, if you're not aware, UCAP only serves students in the 7th and 8th grade. So the students in 8th grade would be coming back to us naturally anyway, because they would be 9th graders. So we're talking about, is it 42 students? We're talking about 42 7th grade students only. So the 42 7th grade students, and if you think about this, the $2 million for 80 students, 42 that we're talking about right now. They will have a program made specifically for them so that they can remain a cohort if they so choose at Roger Williams Middle School with their own interventionists specifically dedicated to them, in addition to all the wraparound services that a social worker, that the school has a school psychiatrist, guidance counselors, MLL supports, all of those. And if the parent and student chooses to select a different school, they're eligible to do that. They don't have to go to Roger Williams, but if they want to stay as a cohort together, we are providing extra intervention and extra services to them at Roger Williams, or they can select by school choice one of our other middle schools to attend. And so that, we had a parent night for the families to come in and learn about those different program options and how to enroll and how to register. We had members of our registration team there if they were interested in registering that evening. And so we are talking about the 42 students and having a cohort program, or they can choose school choice.
My only question is, so is there only Providence students attending that school right now?
Currently, there are like one or two from random districts who are not partner districts who have opted to send one or two students, but almost 100% of the students there are.
Who owns that building?
I think they lease it from their.
There's the 501c3, like the Friends of UCAP, or the, I think, actual owners of the building, and then the school entity is the one that leases it.
Councilor Peterson, and Councilor Graves, you have something too?
No, I think she's gonna ask my same question today.
Oh, because we keep doing that thing. This is actually more of a clarified question. UCAP, I feel as though UCAP was very distant when I was in school, and I was in school for a long time ago. Can you please explain to me what UCAP does for the 7th and 8th grade? Why are parents opting to send their students to UCAP versus the other middle schools or private school or whatever it might be?
I can start by saying first, they thought it was a small school, they needed wraparound services. We can do that some.
We actually have more wraparound
We have
services.
more wraparound
When in
services.
meeting with them, we found that they were missing services that the students needed. So I want to be clear about that. Although they had some services, they didn't have all of the services students needed. And in fact, in the middle of 8th grade, they were sending students back to us. So I just want to be clear about those wraparounds.
Even
Go ahead, please go ahead.
we was looking at that, but we was also looking at some of the students that were being sent over with IEPs and 504s, especially the IEPs, that state law, you must look at it, review it, do any changes you need to do, and that wasn't happening. Students were returning back to us with the same IEP that we had sent.
So, again, I'm just gonna push this point. Are the students that were sent to UCAP more of a school that required additional supports, or is it behavioral supports, or is it like, what is the differential of the student between?
I think the way that they advertise is that it's a small school setting that can increase engagement and accelerate performance. I think that's the way they market it.
The students have maybe not been successful in a traditional school environment, so it's smaller
Yeah,
schools.
and, they talk about increased attendance. Their attendance is significantly lower than our middle school students. So if we just look at our 7th and 8th grade students compared to the 7th and 8th grade students there, more than half of their students are chronically absent on a daily basis. Right, and so the things that they were promising our students, when we looked at the data, it didn't appear that they were delivering on that promise. And so we wanted to create an opportunity within our own district to deliver on that promise.
That's fine. To create that environment for students at Roger Williams or whatever it might be, whatever school that might be chosen, is there an additional added cost to it, or is it just, is there like a different, how much?
So this is 1.9 million,
Yeah.
right? However, what we're able to do is hire the additional interventionist and have the social worker support at Roger Williams for significantly under that $1.9 million.
Counselor Pichardo?
I have some reservations or, because I know of the model and also the students, right? Just a background, I was in the Senate, Rob, who, I forget his last name right now, and the concept of, Rob Robio, the concept of students having IEPs and the challenges working, performing in regular schools. It went through a lot of reiteration, ALP, servicing our students, and eventually that was one of the alternative schools. And when I say reservation is that because Roger Williams, that's the middle school that's currently there, have their own set of challenges. And I think the question in terms of providing additional service to those students, while you're also providing an alternative to parents, obviously, it challenges the services throughout the school districts, right? If they go to different schools, because they're choosing that. What was the result of this convening with parents, and what is that plan? I would love to see that or have more assurance that that's a workable plan for the kids, because I know all around it's very challenging. And then the other aspect of it was in terms of and programs have evolved, and obviously, and thank you for reaching out and sharing that information with me in terms of the 42 students and how much it costs and so forth. I just think that even for these 7th graders that are transitioning, that they definitely would require those services and help and that flexibility. And I'm concerned in essence that having it at Roger Williams, if that's the school, that's the appropriate environment.
And
I'd like to discuss that further.
Sure, and I want to clarify, because I hear you saying concern about spreading out a large number of students with IEPs. There are only 4 IEPs. So I think there's a lot of
4 IEP students?
coming, that's it, that's all they have.
Right.
Yes,
Right, but
yes.
there's other, okay.
Yeah.
That's why I would like to discuss it even more in depth, because I think that that's,
I think the
It's
assumption
a
was
good
that a lot of the students there have IEPs and are special education or MLL learners. That is not the demographic that they're serving.
The other thing I just mentioned too, and obviously we're thinking about the students as we should have 42 coming back to us next year. But I think it's also worth contrasting if you were around when this program was maybe more successful is when the district only had 800 to 1,000 kids in middle schools, right? And so in the coming years, we'll still have bringing Nathan Bishop some schools that are big and offer a large middle school setting, but we'll have pre-K through 8 options. And so for those students who, to the extent the size of the school is important, maybe we'll have other options that we didn't have, you know.
And by expanding our PK8s, we'll also be having students have the opportunity to stay in small schools from PK all the way through 8, right? And so we'll also have those opportunities. But it's really important for us to look at the amount of absences that the students are experiencing, their level of proficiency in that program upon enter and then exit, and look at our students in similar demographics and how they're performing and what can we do for our students. And if we had 1.9 million, how many students can we effectively and successfully touch? That's a pretty big number, and we could reach a lot of students with 1.9 million, not just 42.
Good conversation.
With that, I think the last thing is a timeline, but we're at the end of that cycle. And so maybe we want to transition to the students experiencing.
can I just, one thing before, just on that end, if, whether it's through this committee or Hope, if you could just get us, obviously, some more information regarding that, UCAP, that transition plan. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Deputy Superintendent, you said you were gonna go through the budget timeline, or?
No, we're gonna get.
Let's move to that quickly so we can get, unless people.
Yeah, no, I'm just, the last point, or the last, bar, July 2026, Commissioner approved. Is that outdated?
Yeah. So your time, yes, it will be changed. It's a little punchy, but yeah, this was created, presentation was created before.
No, Councilor Davidson, do you have something?
I mean, so what, if you were to rewrite that last line?
Yeah, all jokes aside, I mean, we will have we have a proposed budget now. We've typically historically come back after revenue numbers get finalized in June and July. So I assume we would go and then offer a final budget in September. We would likely do the same with our school board. So it would be the commissioner would approve this proposed budget, and then we would have the final budget once revenue figures are final at the end of June. That would be voted upon by the school board. I don't know what the city process would be, but the first step would be going back. We've done this the past few years. During the intervention, we go back to the school board, they vote on our final.
So you're talking about, just like State House revenue projections, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, once the final state budget, that'll allow us to close our final revenue numbers, and so we have to make any adjustments based on that.
And the school board.
Yeah.
Moving on, before you start, Deputy Superintendent, Finance team, thank you so much for being troopers. I will be a little sad if you guys get up and leave, but I will not take it personal. You guys have been with us so much, and I just want to make it clear that you guys are more than welcome to take part on and take care of other responsibilities whenever you need to.
It's been a long week, yeah.
More to come. That's good. You don't have to.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Historical context if needed. And expertise and wisdom. We can continue. Page 21, it looks like.
So the first chart is simply kind of the change in homeless percentages since 2019. So you can see the number of students that we were aware of that were experiencing homelessness, that the district provided services and supports for over that time period. And you can see this year, 25-26, we currently have 133 students who have a reported homelessness, and that's about 7%.
So just to confirm, it's just percentage and actual, or what, I don't,
Yeah, it's percentage and actual. So the homeless number is 133, the percent homeless is 7.
The percent of our students,
Yeah.
so.
how is this data collected?
So we work with our students and our families and our FACE department and our homeless coordinator. When we suspect homelessness, or if a family reports homelessness, then we are able to document it. So when social workers or principals or teachers start to notice certain potential trends, or a parent reports that they're homeless, then we're able to know that the student's homeless, needs services, and we collect that data and support.
Question, Counselor Graves?
In these times now, I don't know if we can really go on this 133. These are the ones that are reporting
These are the
it.
ones that report. These are the reported ones.
Okay,
yes.
and so
Yeah,
the
we
one,
anticipate, or, you
Go
know,
ahead.
we have families that are spending time in multiple locations, maybe friends' homes, maybe
Couch surfing.
couch surfing,
Yeah.
right? And they might not report that, and we might not see signs of that, because wherever they're staying, it might not come across as the student having home insecurities. Or we have families that have a lot of pride and don't want to report for other reasons. And so these are the best numbers that we have based upon what's reported or what we've looked into because of signs that have appeared, or because the student might be involved in DCYF and DCYF has let us know. That's another way that we get the numbers through DCYF. So when a family is homeless, they are assigned a DCYF worker, and that DCYF worker works with the school. Sometimes there's an ed advocate involved as well. So,
What, sorry,
yeah,
No.
fine.
what definition of homeless, yes, do you use? Like if a family reports their couch surfing,
That's homeless.
that's what you would consider that?
Yeah, that's homeless. If you cannot depend on having a roof over your head night to night, you fall into the homeless category. And if you're at the will of somebody else being gracious enough to give you a space in their home, you're homeless, because that goodwill could change, even if that's a family member.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, because the state doesn't, if you're couch surfing, you're not considered homeless to the state. So the fact that we're going a little deeper, because in reality you are
Yes.
unhoused, stable housing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. And so what we have on the next page is just a comparison, so you can see how being homeless or having home insecurities really impacts your ability to come to school on a daily basis. So if you look at the red line, those are our students who are not reported as homeless. And if you look at the blue, those are the students who have a report of homelessness. And so you can see that right now, currently, as of last year, because that's our most recent data, we have about a 6% difference in daily attendance. On the next page, what you can see is, unfortunately, when students have housing insecurity, we tend to see upticks in behaviors that do result in discipline, especially suspensions. And so you can see the difference between the percentage of students who are experiencing housing insecurity or homelessness and their suspension patterns compared to students who are not reporting housing insecurity or homelessness.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Knowing this, can you give just a couple of reasons of the reasons for suspensions? Is it too much absenteeism or is it?
No, we don't suspend for absenteeism.
Okay.
No, so suspension, we have really put major restrictions on. So starting last year, really defined suspension to be what we call a level 3. And that means that it has to be a direct threat to yourself or to others in a way that the school can't keep you safe or keep others safe. Right, and so we really decreased before. Suspensions were for a much wider variety of reasons. A student might have sworn at a teacher, for example, and that might have resulted in suspension in the past. Now we're trying to do more things like restorative, keeping kids in school, providing them access to their education. Yes, they should not have sworn at a teacher, and yes, there needs to be restorative, but it's critical that the students are in school. So we have really cut down on the types of suspensions. We're also very closely monitoring the number of suspensions. The state says you can only suspend a student up to 10 days. And so we are monitoring to make sure that that's what's happening. And if we see a school that does not follow that, we are addressing that with the principal. Because again, if our students aren't in school, they're not getting the food, they're not getting the safety, they're not getting the education. And so we're really careful about no more than 10 days. And if a student has an IEP, an individual education plan, we're also making sure that we're doing those manifestations, because if the behavior is because of a disability, and that's the way the disability presents, we shouldn't be suspending for that. We should be doing the education and intervention around improving their toolkit in terms of how they respond.
Thank you.
The next page, I just wanted you to see the difference between student performance for those who have reported home insecurity or homelessness on the RICAS ELA and RICAS Math. Again, the blue are the students who have reported home insecurity or homelessness, and the red are the students who have not. So you can see that in ELA, there's almost a 7% difference, and in math, there is about a 6% difference in performance. When students are worried about where food or safety is coming from, they're not performing as well. There's a lot of worry in their lives and trauma in their lives, and it impacts learning. And so we think it's important for you to also have an understanding of what we do in terms of staffing and services to support those students that we're aware of that have home insecurity or homelessness. And so Chris, I'll let you take over for the money.
Yeah, so Chris can try.
Zach, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I should mention,
2 minutes.
we're joined by Janet Jargo
Yes.
as our Mickey Bento liaison, and Karina also supports this work. But
Big Pretty Bento is the federal kind of
Statute.
statute that oversees this work, and so we have a person dedicated. You might know her.
Full disclosure. My wife. 22 years.
Oversees this work in our
Speak about
district. It's really important work.
So there's a lot that team does, obviously as direct services, but also through supplies, whether that's hygiene or educational supplies and backpacks, offering families transportation services, some printing and other family services that those families receive support from. So a lot of that comes from either Title I or McKinney-Vento, which is a specific grant.
It's a subset of Title I funding that's specific to this school.
Let's talk about the transportation for a minute, because I think it's really important to understand how that works. So if we have a student who's a Providence resident, and now they're experiencing homelessness, and maybe they're couch surfing at a family's home in Johnston, or a friend's home in Johnston, and they notify us of that, we are providing transportation here to Providence, even though they're not in Providence, because we want to make sure that there's as little disruption to their education as we can possibly support. And so the transportation becomes extremely important. We can also help if they need transportation for medical reasons, if the family can't get them to an appointment or those types of things where they can't afford classes and things like that. We have money set aside to support the students in these ways.
Also thinking about students who may be, or families who may be in shelters that are outside Providence. We also support those families.
Yeah, that's where I want to point to the line, the $1.2 million, obviously a very substantial amount, and that is based on our obligations we have, which are, if a student is
Johnson, student living in Providence.
yeah, a student in Johnston, but is temporarily, located in Providence, we have to pay 50% of that student's transportation bill. And so, more often than not, it's us paying for students who are not PhD students, but are residing in a shelter in Providence or whatever it may be. Well, we're there to support them. We aren't enrolled with us, nor are we receiving state aid. So that has been a bit of a discussion with the General Assembly and others about how you, an unfunded mandate, right? We're transporting students that happen to reside in Providence because there's a shelter here, but they aren't enrolled with us, and we are, totals a pretty sizable portion of funding and something growing. So that's beyond all the great things that we need to do. That's also an obligation that has a pretty significant financial impact.
This is it.
Questions? Any last minute urgent questions? There definitely is a few here. Counselor, who's ready? Counselor Peterson's ready?
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about how much you guys have in grants awarded? Grants.
Yeah, so great question. So it's probably just easier to point to
In which book? Budget report?
so page 41 of the budget book. It shows what our proposed budgets are under federal entitlements and reimbursement.
Not easy to see the numbers going down on the federal stuff. I know everybody's been hit on it. And it's,
absolutely. And there's discussions about moving some of these federal dollars in fiscal 28, but we were afraid that we were going to move some of them in fiscal 27. That hasn't come to fruition.
Thank you. I just was curious about that because I know that you have people in charge of all of this. But the other question that I have is with regards to the cybersecurity attack that you guys had last year. And I have two questions. One, what was the final outcome of that? Was that something that we had to pay a ransom on? And two, what steps have been done to make it better?
So we did not pay ransom for it, but we had an obligation, both it was the right thing to do, but also under state law to provide monitoring for the packet. So all that we bought it up front, so we don't have to, it's not an ongoing expenditure, but we covered credit monitoring for 5 years, I think it was 2 to 5 years that was on the situation. So that was some of the financial impact, but there was no ransom paid. One of the steps we took immediately was we actually worked with the cities, both colleagues of the state and the city on kind of what was seen as best in class device protection, and so we have a new software that is called Falcon. It's on every device and is what we feel is kind of best in class and more secure. It also comes with, I think, one of the important added benefits is beyond just a trigger if something bad happens, it actually sends it to people who then can understand like, hey, there's an issue and it's a problem, not just a normal something happened. We've also applied for a grant, and we're waiting for it to be awarded, but there's a big component of that that's going to go towards training employees because while this was not caused by a phishing attack, that does seem to be what's happening more often than not. So our hope is that once that grant is awarded, we can invest more in some of the training, but some of the hardening of our systems was some of the first steps that
We also added multi-factor authentication across all of our different products. Wasn't a popular move, but
Seems to be the way all of the systems are doing it, so yeah, I get it. Those were my last two questions.
I have a couple questions. Executive director, what's the finance team makeup at PPSD?
Sure, so, under my purview, roughly 36 employees will oversee payroll, accounts payable, purchasing, and benefits, along with the budget and finance team as well. So the 36 FTEs in division of finance.
And those are those all in Central?
Central City 797?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, who manages utility expenditures?
That would be the finance office and accounts payable.
That's your team?
Yeah. So we have the controls and deputy controls and accounts payable team oversee the expenditures for utilities.
What's going on with utility payments? I've been reported or I've been shared info of certain percentage of accounts being late.
Can you elaborate? I'm not sure. I mean, there was potentially during the coordination of the energy credits, there was some time where it took some time for the city to get us account information over to us to make those payments in a timely manner, but that was last fiscal year, and I think all of that has been corrected. I'm not aware of it.
So regarding Rhode Island energy accounts, there's no past due expenses on there. So what I'm getting to is correct me if I'm wrong, because these are numbers that are shared with me.
Yeah.
I'm informed that we pay an estimated $5,000 a month in late fees.
I don't think there's any late fees. I think it's illegal for them to utility companies to charge us late fees.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't pay any.
Awesome. And the last question that I have really is regarding PCTA. Our rec department informed us that PCTA is not available for summer program, which impacts around 400 kids. I don't know if it's too late this year, but going forward, I mean, we have to have access to that facility. And this is going to be part of the conversations regarding PPSD facilities. I mean, I've tried to do stuff with Georgia West, and it's a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie, it has been in the past. I haven't even tried more, but going forward, there's a lot of intersection between rec and PPSD facilities and just community usage and availability. And I think that's something we definitely need to keep our collaborative efforts on.
Yeah, I'm happy to certainly partner on that. I would share the specifics on PCTA. It's a facility that gets a significant amount of use. If you were to walk in, we could walk over there this week. If you look on the right-hand side of the wall, the complex, it is in terrible shape. It's where the hammer throw happens, and a lot of the trash has been torn up. We as a district there's no other funding source for it, so we have to pay to replace it. And the way we do that is over the summer where there's not as much activity. So I know our athletics team here had worked with the director, is it Holly? On relocating to other spaces. There's an alternative location at Hope. So this is not every year that it will be a challenge, but like either we don't have gym class during the school year, or we have to do some of these repairs over the summer.
Counselor Graves and Counselor Peterson.
Okay, hope is hopeless. You can only get 50 kids in there. If you open up that other side, there's usually something else going on. Plus hope, I hate to tell you this, it's not clean. There's no air conditioner and it's kind of dusty, it's kind of musty, it's really not a really good atmosphere for kids at all. And so so the program that we're talking about, they're talking about going down to 50 kids per session, opposed to 150 to 175 kids per session. And this is citywide. So it's something else really needs to be done. I don't know what other spot there is, but
Just to add to that, one of the things that was also a point of concern was that it's extremely hot. And
yes,
that's
Which
not-
building are we talking
yes,
about?
hope.
Okay.
Yeah, I was getting
Yeah,
to-
I do know that, you could probably know better than I, but I do know that Hope is on the list for renovations that are gonna be
They are.
focused on HVAC.
But they won't be completed by the time the summer program.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and that's why I think this is a one time, like, I don't anticipate it for the future years, but this, we have to do that.
Yeah,
So this was the second year, because last year was the
they weren't
first.
able to do it last year either.
So, how long are we anticipating? Because like I said, this has been 2 years. And kids almost died there last year. There were a lot of issues with kids were overheating and feeling dizzy. And they only had 50 kids. Again, I'll keep nailing that in. You know how many families that is that don't have a place for their children during those times, weekly.
I'm 99% sure, but we can send confirmation that I don't think there's any planned maintenance that would impact it the summer after this one. I know that doesn't help this summer, but I don't think this is that, and I do think there's the trap in the wall that needs to go. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna say on record, I mean, there's absolutely no way I'm gonna accept PCTA not being an option next year. I think going on 2 years, you know, I try to be reasonable as much as possible when us counselors, and I'm on the rec board for full transparency, so I have a lot of interest in this, and this is impacting a lot of students.
Can we check and see if classical's available?
I think we check all the other
Yes.
places,
Yes,
but we could
please.
certainly.
Yeah,
Anything that might be supportive to
Supportive to that.
because it's a substantial amount of
And,
children.
and just so you're aware, it's nothing to, you know, obviously, a lot of us are frustrated on this because the first time we became aware of it is when rec department is presenting for us a couple weeks ago, and they didn't have much to share. So, you know, that's where we get concerned is you're telling us this at the, you know, a couple of weeks before school is out. And you didn't bring us in to try to come up with another solution that works a little better than sending kids to Hope. The rec department director shared that Hope High School is just difficult for some families to get to. You know, obviously the centrally located schools are, obviously the space is bigger too. A lot more convenient for families, but if there's opportunity to continue the conversation at some point, we're definitely more than interested in doing that.
And I want to correct, the rec department didn't bring that to us. The parents brought that
That's
to me. You know, the parents are frustrated, the kids were frustrated, and the staff was frustrated. So those are the people that brought that to us. It was prior to this, and
We did push to find out what was happening.
what was
during
going on
the week.
prior to them coming in. And they still were being told, we're not sure if they're gonna be able to have that. And they still are telling parents, sign up because we're still not sure because they haven't gotten a definitive answer. So it would be nice if they get a definitive answer, but please try to classify somewhere else. And also, could you also get Hope High School gymnasium clean? I mean, deep clean. And I'm not blaming the maintenance staff because the maintenance staff is doing the best that they can. There's only so many of them, you know, and there's a lot of other programs going on. So we really need to do a deep cleaning. And every gym, we all know, kids go into the gym, every gym needs a deep cleaning every so often, every last one of them, because they're tracking everything in there. No, so please, but it definitely needs a deep cleaning, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. You're all set?
I'm all set. I'm not
You're all
fussing at
set.
you guys.
The last thing I want to say before I say my final remarks is we didn't really get into too much of the facilities stuff, conversation. We've been getting some concerning details, I guess, shared to us as a recent, so I think it makes sense at some point in the near future just to have another conversation around that and anything to do, anything that we can do to support those efforts and timelines. It's a huge priority for all of us. But just the last thing I want to say is thank you so much for
thank you,
coming
guys.
here.
We appreciate
More importantly, all the day-to-day work. You guys are in there in the weeds on a day-to-day basis. You know, we only see and hear so much. Obviously, all the teachers and students and families that benefit of your guys' work and commitment. We as elected officials here in the city of Providence sincerely appreciate you. And like I started the remarks today, we want to be part of solutions. I mean, we could spend years looking back on what happened, what has happened. You know, obviously it's important to learn from the past, but more importantly, we have about 20,000 kids depending on all of us to get this work done, to work together, to find solutions, and to keep investing resources as much as possible. So, like I said, I'm fully committed to that. I think everyone around this table is committed to that, and we will continue working together. But I just want to sincerely thank you guys for being here and like I said, for doing all the work that you guys do. And
welcome back. That's what I was gonna say. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome.
Looking forward to developing this partnership.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. This time I'll take a motion to continue items 1 through 5.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilor Graves, seconded by Councilor Davidson. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Any discussions? The ayes have it. Maybe we will make a motion to adjourn and sit here for another hour. At this time, I will. We will continue. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Councilor Davidson, seconded by Councilor Graves. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Any discussions? The meeting is adjourned.
Amen. Good night, everyone. Oh my goodness. Everybody have a nice weekend.